This is Circa Ignem podcast episode number 021 with our really special guest, Mr. Robert Bob Raymon.
Yes, sir. That is I.
So, did only your mom call you Robert?
No. I actually chose Robert later in life as an adult. As a kid, I was Bobby.
Okay.
And I hated it when I got into junior high because I was like, that's such a kid's name.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm Robert now. You can refer to me as Robert.
Like pipe in your mouth.
That's right.
The pretentiousness.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. And now everybody calls me Bob. So. It's just
take your pick.
It is what it is. As I say,
I feel like that's what Trump would call you.
No, he'd say, "Bob, you're a good guy."
Everybody agrees. Sorry, we're taking this off the rails from the get.
That's okay.
Have you seen the comedian Shane Gillis?
I love him.
When he does a Trump, he's like, Trump's so easy. You got to say something, and then you say that you said that thing. I walked in the room, and I said, "Wow, this is a great room." Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Rick, good evening.
Good evening.
All right.
By the way, that was Rick.
I was just going to say, he doesn't really need an introduction. All right. Bob has been married for 20 years to the same beautiful woman. Love it. Father of 3 children. Former deacon of Lifeway Baptist Church. Currently employed at Clovis Unified School District, working with students and with disabilities / behaviors. Elementary robotics instructor with Bricks for Kidz. He co-hosts his own podcast, Let's Get Jacked Up.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, no worries. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, dude, we're pumped. I'm pumped. Rick has given you a ton of lauds, so
nice.
You better deliver.
Well, dang it.
And if not, this recording is thrown on a USB and it goes right into that fire.
I think it's when you started putting the 0 in front, that was the big sign, 0, 2, 1. I saw the episode with Girardi where they're like, he said, he's like, I'm not coming on until there's at least 3 digits.
Yeah.
We're like, just add a 0. Just add a 0. No.
That's funny.
Well, the first episode Eli did, and it was 001, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And now I'm like, well, we're a fifth of the way to needing that third digit. So.
I like goals. That's what I say.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
Goals. Yeah.
Real quick, sorry. Let's get jacked up.
Let's get jacked up.
Is that still going? Or?
It is going. My co-host and I, we start off with 3, and the third guy is still around. He's an older guy, and he's just traveling all over the place. In fact, he just did a remote interview. He's in, I think, either Louisiana or St. Louis, one of those L words.
Okay.
And and he actually bumped into some street preachers. They were just on a street corner preaching,
nice. And
he started interviewing them, and he got their permission to make it a part of our podcast, and so it turned into a part of our podcast.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and our podcast is great because for me, you listen to so much stuff that's always political. Mm-hmm. It's always, and not saying that I don't get into the political part, because I have a bad habit of being opinionated about that stuff. Ask my wife, she'll tell you.
As we all should.
Yes.
Probably amplifies a little bit more when I'm around.
Of course it does, yeah. But, our big thing is that we were, both my buddy Tim Parrish and I, we were super just interested in how the Bible is read by people, right? So an example is the Nephilim. Okay, so the Nephilim, it's described as tall as cedars and as big, as strong as oaks, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are people who read the Bible and they read it literally, where everything is literal, and then there are people who read it and they see it as metaphorical. Okay, it's not my place to say either or on that, but we do kind of break down the possibilities of, is it metaphorical? Yeah. Is it literal? And we kind of dive into that. And it's a lot of fun because it helps you to get a better understanding of, first of all, everything about the Bible is about God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So many things that people debate about is chump change compared
not God.
Not God. Absolutely, right?
If we distill it down to its simplest form, it's we're not talking about
it. For sure. Yeah. And so, we get into a lot of topics that are a little bit questionable. I mean, we had at one point we had a guy who is he's Christian and gay.
Okay.
And that was an interesting thing because I have my opinions about that differ from that particular person.
Yeah.
But we approached it in a very respectful way, and we got his mindset on it. And obviously, there was a lot of abuse as a child and all that stuff, and he still struggles with that sin.
Yeah.
And I really was like, I was going into that interview ready to just lay down the law.
Yeah.
Like, dude, sexual sin, bro. No, stay away. And but he said, sin is sin.
Yep.
He's like, and I'm not trying to justify the lifestyle that I have.
That's big of him to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that right there, I think, if I was to take our podcast and put it in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Awesome.
Is it gives you a perspective that you're maybe not used to. We tend to talk in an echo chamber, right? We tend to be around people that talk about the same things.
Yep.
We agree with the same things, and all you're doing is boosting up that egotistical side of us that makes us want to say we're right.
It's the rah rah rah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just going, well, no, I'm going to play devil's advocate real fast.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask, to your point, if we're not asking those questions.
Absolutely.
But this is what's funny, even the phrase that you said where it's like, we kind of cross questionable things. It's like, God wants us to do that in terms of the questioning.
Right.
Because it means that we're still open to listening and trying to unwind a God that is far beyond any possible human understanding, right? Like, even saying that line right there, like, projects something onto him that doesn't even apply to him.
Right.
Right? Like, that's how vastly different he is from us.
Well,
Right.
I mean, it is. I mean, the thing, the idea that we, by some weird miracle, have been graced to have the likeness of him, right? And I'm not talking, people take this out of context all the time. We're not little gods, right?
No.
We're not little gods. He's not an actual man up in the sky looking down on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of religions who say that they can earn their way to be a god somewhere, and that's not the truth, That's not the case. But what it does for me, it's just so amazing that he loved us so much that he gave us that. We're talking the smallest tip of a needle of his intellect and his ability to appreciate that no other animal on this planet can do. And then he gave us free choice on top of that. And man, what a grace, what an amazing gift that is. And then we go and mess it all up. But that's and that happens in the first book of the Bible, in the first few chapters, in fact,
like page 3.
Yeah, right.
Shoot, like sentence 3.
But again, and again, that just goes back to how the Bible it points to Christ. The New Testament, the Old Testament, it all points to Christ. That we needed to have that living sacrifice that was going to redeem us of our sins, because there's nothing else. There's nothing we can do on our own that can get us into heaven except for Jesus Christ.
And to your point, like that, the concept of being made in His image. What saint? Gosh dang! Now I'm blanking on who said it. I will try and find it and throw it in the show notes. But essentially, he said that's the reason why Satan attacks us at the core of like sexuality, right?
Sure.
So sexual perversion, whether it's heterosexual perversion, pornography, etc., or all the other variations, it's because he's so pissed off that we are indelibly marked, from the moment we're conceived, the moment that God thought of us in existence, right? Before we even came into being, he knew that Bob was going to be born in this time period, and he had a specific mission to fulfill during that time period of his life, right? That Satan hates the fact that he cannot create, right? Like all he can do is mess with what's already created, and even then, he knows he's lost. Right? Like, isn't that a trip to think?
And to me, it's crazy to think that, because I do a lot of like, I think about that a lot, and I think, has he become so delusional? You know what I mean? Like, has the devil become so delusional that he just thinks that he's got this? You know what I mean?
I think it's the epitome of pride.
Yeah.
He is so consumed by this concept of, no, I'm right.
Yeah.
I know what's best.
Gosh.
Like when you just, and again, we're talking about a being that's far beyond our comprehension.
Of course.
But still created,
yes.
right? We're not putting him on any higher pedestal than he deserves, but his intellect is so vastly different than ours.
Yeah. And
yet even fallen, how much does that prove how much pride in our lives we need to reject?
Well, and that's why I rolled my head back, man, because that's the epitome of humanity.
Yes.
I am right.
Yeah.
You know, I am right.
I know exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, God's like, hold my beer.
Right.
Watch me.
Yeah. No, dude, it's crazy. So anyways, going back to the podcast, you know, we are, man, I don't even know. We've had a few hundred episodes, and we were on this network called the Fringe radio network. Yeah. And at one point, man, we were pulling somewhere around at least a couple thousand.
Nice.
Yeah, but the hard part is that it's exciting, but it's not, because it's like, how many of these people are just those who have like automatic download on the Fringe, because it's a network. So we've got all kinds of stuff, right? So I mean, there are people that are a part of our network that are like, that believe that, you know, aliens are
sent by God.
Well, yeah. Well,
and for full disclosure, I'm not saying that's not a possibility.
No. Yeah,
I'm just laughing because sometimes it's like, there's a lot that needs to happen between.
If you want to break down my thoughts on that, I'm ready. But there are people that believe that, you know, like for instance, the lizard people that, you know, come pouring out of Antarctica. They, you know,
Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hillary Clinton, get it right. So we have those types of podcasts too, you know. And so how many of those are actually ours versus others? I don't know. But it's still cool to say that, you know, we're part of something where we're getting like thousands of downloads and stuff. But the network is starting to kind of die down. The guy who built it is retiring, and he's named a guy to replace him. I don't know him, but I'm excited to see what, you know, it's fresh blood. You never know. Yeah. There's always dips. There's always, you know, the waxes and wanes, as they say.
Well, and it's so fickle.
It is,
like everything else.
Oh,
I don't want to classify podcasts in the same category as social media, but it's real similar.
Some people call it the original.
Yeah, and it sucks because it's like when you have solid content, you would hope that it's because people know what to expect,
right?
But they know that there's going to be a fresh look. It's not just someone else ranting about what's going on politically or current events.
Right. Yeah.
But the reality is that, you know, people, you know, what's the next gold? Look, what's the next shiny thing?
Oh yeah, for sure, dude. We're like goldfish, man. Every 5 seconds, thanks to TikTok and Facebook Shorts and all those other things, man. It's horrible. Yeah, you know what's crazy is podcasts. They've been around for a long time. I remember back in like the early 2000s. I'm talking like 2, 3, somewhere around there. Karen and I were dating at the time, and this guy's like, I'm doing this podcast, and I'm like, what the heck is a podcast? Like, what is that? I mean,
it was there. You didn't have Apple at that point.
No, you didn't have any of that stuff. Yeah. So they're just like, they just downloaded onto some random site, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's
like
crazy.
A Craigslist,
right? Pretty much,
and then people knew, this is the handle to go find it, and then you're literally just sharing it with your buddies on your freaking Nokia brick phone.
Oh my god,
posting it on your MySpace wall.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
QR codes.
No, none of that. No. Yeah, I remember the first time I actually listened to a podcast that was like a friend's podcast. He gave me his the URL for it, and it was like 37 numbers or letters or whatever it was long, and he had it handwritten down. He's like, "Bro, you want to check out my podcast?" here you go, handwritten on like a half-torn piece of paper, and I'm like, what is this HTTP / and it's like, because that was before they had like the fast links and all that stuff.
You're like, this looks like a GPS coordinate, bro. I'm not showing up here.
If I click on this, is my wife going to smack me later? I don't even know, So awesome. But
is all my information going to be gone?
Right, absolutely.
Oh, dude. All right. What's interesting in your bio too is I used to work for group homes.
Okay.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this guy's a homie.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I get my licks, that's for sure.
Are you on the, right there on that alternative campus next to Sunnyside?
I'm actually at a high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm purposely going to keep it vague just because of information.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get there's lots of toilet training going on. There's lots of we have full on suits that we have to wear under certain circumstances with behaviors and stuff. So
at a substantially different level than I was.
Yeah. And what's crazy, man, is I started off I've been doing this type of work since 1999.
Nice.
And working with deaf and hard of hearing kids, and I never knew sign.
No way.
Yeah.
How did you do? Like, how would you communicate?
So a lot of the kiddos have these things called cochlear implants, right?
Totally know what those are.
So for those who don't know, if you know Rush, you know.
Right,
Rush,
but
Rick, you gotta rattle the
paper. Shaking the water.
There you go. But yeah, so I would use the cochlear implants. They had a device you could attach to them, and you basically spoke into a microphone, and it went directly into their brain.
Wow.
And so pretty much, and so that's how we do. I mean, I picked up sign. I mean, you pick up things here and there, which I've lost all of them. I learned all the curse words from the fourth graders, but that I worked with. But you know how that goes. Yeah, I'll show you some
Isn't
later.
That the first thing you learned in any language?
Any language, yes, of course. That and where's the bathroom? So I did that for a few years, and I was actually working at Smart and Final doing night stalking.
Okay.
And so I was working 2 jobs with Clovis Unified, which is where the district that I'm at. Before they changed the rules, they let you. So I had 2 full-time jobs basically, so I was sleeping 4 hours a night. But I loved it. No dose. I should have bought stock in that because it got to the point. Remember no dose, right? It got to the point where I was chewing them like candy.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was bad, dude. I mean, it was like, people would be like, hey, Bob, how you doing? I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Yeah. So then I took a break from doing all that working with. Yeah. No, oddly enough, I picked up some more because Smart and Final gave me a greater opportunity than I got with the school district. So I took a break from that for about 8 years or so, and I would still kind of pop in every once in a while. Okay. But then when I got laid off in 2010, then I started. I stayed home for a year, and I was a stay-at-home dad for a year because we found out that we were pregnant with the twins.
Nice.
The same week I got laid off. That'll be a story later too. It's a trip. Yeah. Talk about how the God is just
in it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
In it. He's not just in it. He's literally enveloped you in his love and protection. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Yeah. So then I got back into it, and I was in 2011. I got back into this, right? And I'm like, I don't even know what I could do. Yeah. Like, how would I be effective? So I made a phone call, and the lady that was my starting teacher, she was now running all of the special ed, and she's like, I need someone. You're perfect. Let's go. Yeah. The interview was basically like, sign the papers. You start Monday. Blah blah blah. Yeah. And so
because the relationship was already there. Because it was just there. Like, I know who you are. Right. We don't need to do this.
Yeah. So I started off slow, and then I got my first kiddo that had some behaviors, and they were pretty bad. And I'm like, dude, I like this. That's cool. Because when you can make a connection with those kids, and they're able to break through these challenges that have plagued them for so long, even if it's for a moment. Yeah. I mean, it's like mission accomplished. Totally. It's one of the greatest things. You get paid pennies, and people always talk like, how do teachers do it? Because they get paid so little. Yeah. First of all, most teachers don't get paid that little, especially in California. Yeah. But it's these little nuggets of love that you get. It's just amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless you, because mine it sounds like there's more longevity in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah.
With me, in terms of, and I won't name names again.
Sure.
They actually aren't in existence, but I want to protect like names.
Yeah.
And here it was just a revolving door, man. So the time that you had to like connect with these kids, and I was dealing with teenagers, which was a whole different level of but dude, like when I had maybe I could say between 5 and 10 instances where you're like, you see that breakthrough, and all of a sudden it's like that's what like that's why I'm in this. But it was so infrequent, and I was just burnt out.
Yeah,
like
and that's hard though. You can get burnt out. I could tell you that if I dealt with the general population of kiddos that did the same things that my kiddos do to me, I'd be fired already. Wow. I have so much patience when it comes to these kiddos, because
I love the honesty.
I mean, the thing is that like if somebody spits in my face and I know they did it because they're doing it for the sake of just getting under my skin, that's very different than
they don't know how to
communicate. They don't know. The only way they know how to get me away from them is to do this that they know will get me away from them. That's a very different thing.
Totally.
So so it's And I've communicated that to all the people that need to know that don't ever put me in general population. Unless you absolutely have to.
I may be on the front page of Fresno Bee the next morning.
In all honesty, though, I mean, obviously I would never do anything, but it's just the idea that I don't have the patience for... Like, it'd be like a man down the street. If a random dude came up to you and, slapped you in the face.
Oh, dude.
And then imagine that hand was covered in poo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you would lose it. You would lose. Have you seen this beard? This beard collects a lot of things, and So, anyways,
I'm really jealous, by the way, Bob. I've gotten close to that, but not nearly as
Karen,
close as it
my
should
wife
be.
hates it.
Okay.
She says my amazingly handsome husband is buried in there somewhere. And I said, no, he's not, because he's fat now, and that's why he has the beard, because
it hides the double chin.
That's right. That's right. I don't know if I've actually seen my chin in about 5. No, I shaved it off. This is actually about a year and a half.
Nice.
So so no trimming or anything.
It's about on par.
Yeah, and it's.
Do you oil that thing?
I have to.
Yeah.
It's dude. I spend more time on my beard than my wife spends on her hair.
Than you did when you had hair,
dude.
Right?
It's horrible.
Jamie was looking at me. Have we talked about this?
No.
Dude, Jamie was looking at me. So I had it probably about a half of where you're at, maybe a little bit longer. So it was starting to get some like. And Jamie got out of the shower one day, and I'm like brushing and doing all this stuff, and she's like, "You spend way more time on that beard than you ever did on your hair." And that was like this moment where I was like, fair enough. I had no comeback. It was just like,
no, hey. But you know what's funny though? Okay, so when I had my hair, because I'm not like fully, I keep it short because I'm starting to get the little monk ring on the back. Yeah,
if I let it grow out, it's
and so that just makes me feel too old.
Yes,
I've got the gray in the beard, and that's plenty.
Yeah,
okay, but
no comb over here. No, I'm not doing the
Heck no way. No, Donald Trump has mastered that. Nobody else needs to try to top that.
I even question that. I don't know.
Well, okay, fair enough.
When he's like out in front of Marine One and his hair's like doing this.
Yes. Though I have to give credit, when the wind stops blowing, that thing looks like it was untouched. Yeah. All right, okay. But I give random dudes, and this is where it's really weird, right? I was walking down the beach, holding my wife's hand, sandals on, sweatshirt, just walking on the beach,
just hanging out.
Had my beard. Yeah. Some dude, it's like he went out of his way, came up to me to give me a fist bump, and said, "Nice beard, bro." Right, and I'm just like. Okay. When I had in high school, I used to have the spikes, right? So I used to do the frosted tip spikes, right? Shaved on the sides, the whole night. No one ever said that to me. Yeah. If anything, they said, "When you coming out of the closet?" I was like, Justin Timberlake's my best friend. It was bad back then. So bad back then.
Awkwardness.
You know, that's
you're like big gulp, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
that's exactly the same situation. It's like, well,
Yep.
see you later. I got nothing else, bro.
Yeah,
You just talked about my beard. My wife doesn't even talk about my beard.
Yes, you just actually rekindled some animosity that I thought I got over. And Rick knows. Well, you both know my wife.
Yeah.
She's not quiet about anything.
She's not shy.
No, not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I love her to death, but I
love you, Karen.
But I am terrified of her most of the time. Yeah, I am quite terrified of her.
She probably said something like, "So, do you want to go back home with him?" Or some kind of
probably actually.
Yes,
I'll leave you two to this. Whatever this is.
We love you, Karen.
Yes. I'm telling you, I don't know if this is like a guys only type thing, but you want to get somebody in here that will just.
We're not.
Okay.
I don't want to, we haven't, there is no toxic masculinity going on here.
Hey,
Actually, there's already been one female voice on
Jamie.
But it was more of a Thanksgiving episode they did together. But I mean it's...
We've actually talked about, and you guys for sure would be included on this, is like couples.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So having the combination of, and specifically around life.
Oh, cool.
Right. So like having the combination of like the woman and the man, the masculine and the feminine, really shedding light. We haven't really framed out like the question format just to kind of keep things guided. But we think that would be a really cool, again, ministry.
Yeah. For sure. Because, again, how many times do we think as men, we think we have it all figured out? And the women are sitting there like, he gaslighted me 6 times to get his way. Not saying I haven't heard that from my wife already.
But even yes. But even the just perspective.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because I remember some of the moments in all of the kids' births, but that's my perspective, right? Their perspective, or even not necessarily births, but like early like babydom, right? And like kind of getting that like combination, or even just marriage, right? Like the perspective of like how this operates, right? Yeah. And how you work through things 20 years. That takes work.
It takes a lot.
It's not
work,
like just we click. I hate that freaking comment all the time. It's like, no. I'm sorry, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
like it doesn't just click.
People treat love like it's an adjective.
Yes.
But it's not. No, it is a thing you do. It is a verb. It is something that takes real effort. And those who fail it are the ones who don't understand that it is work. I mean, bottom line. Yeah. I mean, everyone at this fire can probably attest to moments in time where your marriage could have been over. Yeah. And it's not. Because you and your spouse recognized that there's a turning point right here. There is a hinge that could either open or close. Yep. What are you going to do with it? Yeah. Yeah. So
and it's who was, I think it was Frad that was saying this. Matt Frad has his own podcast. Super solid dude. He was talking about how we shy, like especially men, we shy away from actually calling out the things that, like, because he's older, I'd say he's I think he's in his 50s now, mid 50s. And he's like, we should be really transparent about the fact that, like, the girl that I'm looking at could be my daughter, and I'm still doing the weird gymnastics in my head. Like, that's course. Totally an option.
Of course.
Yeah. And when you actually talk to your wife about that, they laugh. Right, because they're like, "Thank you for being honest." One, right, because there's a real trust in just sharing that. Sure. But then two, they're laughing because it's also a function of you're both, like, as a man and a woman, as you're getting older, you're struggling with this concept of what does this look like now that my body's kind of breaking down, right? The youthfulness isn't there anymore, right? So you have to as I'll attest, as a dude, I'm still hanging on to this. I want to stay young. Sure. But the reality is no, we need to embrace the fact that, like, we're entering into a different stage of life and God wants us in that. right? There's another joy awaiting.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we're in different stages of our life for a reason. There's been many movies about guys trying to really hold on, trying hard to hold on to that youthfulness. And I mean, there are different stages in our lives in micro instances and in the grand scheme, you know, and once you accept that, that's when real work starts.
Yes.
That's because then you understand that, that might have been, but it is not now.
Right.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that I have gray hair in my beard.
Yes.
Well,
and you then start recognizing that beautiful woman that could be your daughter, and you start going, oh, thank you for that, God.
Yeah.
Not in a unholy way.
No, right.
She's beautiful, and it's also a reflection of I'm at a stage of life where I can recognize that and not do all the weird gymnastics in my brain that used to happen when I was younger.
Of course.
I can be a lot more pure in that. All right. I got a quick read for you.
Sure.
Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember this?
Okay, so can I give a little background on all this really quick?
Yeah, totally.
So they asked me if I had any books that I liked, and I said I don't read books very well.
Which you're not the only guest that said that.
So, but I, in college I was forced to read.
Okay.
And I went to
in college, not high school.
To be honest, I don't remember much about high school. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Not that I was. Anyways, I was required to read these books, and the only reason why I think it sticks out more is because I didn't find my political prowess until I was in college, and I didn't go to college until I was in my 30s.
Nice.
So because I was my long-term goal was to just be a worker.
Which, to be honest with you, it was probably way smarter that you went in your 30s.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
It really was, because I appreciated it, and it gave me a perspective again that I would not have. I tried it right out of high school. Yeah. Okay, I joked that out of the 920 kids that I graduated with, I was 921. So I wasn't the worst. I was pretty damn close, And but in college, as an adult, it is a much different perspective.
Yep.
But so they made me read Fahrenheit 451, and they made me read The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
And
I'm familiar with both. I'm more familiar with Fahrenheit 451.
Okay. So, but the thing about it is that they, these books were written. 451 was written back in the 60s, I think.
Yes.
And the other one, Handmaid's Tale, was written right at about the Reagan era.
Yes.
And regardless of the political purpose at the time of writing, I remember the professor was using this as a political ploy to try to say that this is what happens when people who have too conservative of a life view go to the extremes.
Shocker.
Yeah. And
it's funny how it gets twisted.
And it was so funny because I know for Handmaid's Tale that was the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm not too familiar with Fahrenheit 451, though it does it is just amazing how it's like they were writing the future.
Yes. Well, it's why I said it gets twisted. It doesn't matter. This thing's apolitical.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to push anything. What it is saying is totalitarian states occur when no one stands up.
Right.
When no one says, no, enough is enough. We're not going to do that, right? Mm-hmm. It's again, like what we're talking about off mic. It's this slow sleep.
Yeah, of course.
That people, or you get enough people that are quote unquote leaders that just bend over, and then the dominoes just start falling.
Right.
But anyways,
all right, go ahead and read away. I'll see if I remember.
Yeah. It's shorter. I promise it's on the shorter end. Where are we at here? Hold, please. Here we go. Montag's hands picked up the Bible. He saw what his hands had done, and he looked surprised. Would you like to own this? Faber said, I'd give my right arm. Montag stood there and waited for the next thing to happen. His hands by themselves, like two men working together, began to rip the pages from the book. The hands tore the flyleaf, and then the first, and then the second page. Idiot, what are you doing? Faber sprang up as if he had been struck. He fell against Montag. Montag warded him off and let his hands continue. 6 more pages fell to the floor. He picked them up and wadded the paper under Faber's gaze. Don't, oh, don't, said the old man. Who can stop me? I'm a fireman. I can burn you. The old man stood looking at him. You wouldn't. I could. The book. Don't tear it anymore. Faber sank into a chair, his face very white, his mouth trembling. Don't make me feel tired, any more tired. What do you want? I need you to teach me. All right. Montag put the book down. He began to unwad the crumpled paper and flatten it out as the old man watched tiredly. Faber shook his head as if he were waking up. Montag, have you any money? Some. $400 or $500. Why? Bring it. I know a man who printed out our college paper half a century ago. That was the year I came to class at the start of the new semester and found only one student to sign up for drama from the Aeschylus to O'Neill. You see? How like a beautiful statue of ice it was, melting in the sun. I remember the newspapers dying like huge moths. No one wanted them. No one missed them. And then the government, seeing how advantageous it was to have people reading only about passionate lips and the fist in the stomach, circled the situation with your fire eaters. So Montag, there's this unemployed printer. We might start a few books and wait on the war to break the pattern and give us the push we need. A few bombs and the families in the walls of all the houses, like harlequin rats, will shut up. In silence, our stage whisper might carry.
Yeah. Wait, was that pulled from like yesterday's news lines? Because I mean, think about that. I mean, you really break it down and hear these guys in some dystopian future talking about printing something. Yeah. And how the old man remembered how the newspapers died like moths.
That was the one that jumped out to me. And then it actually really jumped out to me because the pages, as he's ripping the pages of the Bible out, Faber's getting, like, you can see him like dying, right? Because it literally could probably be the only copy of the Bible in the city. And he's literally just like, like, do you know what I did to get that?
Yeah,
right. Like, I had to protect it. I had to probably pay a enormous amount of money, and then to not have people talk to the firemen about it again. Anyways, yeah. So,
but yeah, so again, going back to the reason for picking those is that it's just amazing to me that when that book was first written and people read it, they probably saw it as fiction, right? It's just, man, that's got to be horrible, but that could never happen to us.
Yeah. Especially in America.
Especially in America. Yeah. And how funny now that it is, especially in America, where those things are happening. Yeah. Where we're getting into situations where you can't even talk about the facts without it,
that's triggering me, Bob.
Right, without it
You're
offending somebody
with your facts.
I have to tell you, hey, my boy Ben Shapiro said it best. The facts don't care about your feelings, right? Yeah. But the feelings is all it is. Yeah. I feel this, I feel that, and it's just so sad now. And it's great because my children, my 13-year-old twin girls, they have a very clear understanding of the political bias that's going on right now.
Awesome.
And it's funny, too, because I didn't even bring it up. Whenever we drive around anywhere, I'm an old man. I listen to talk radio, or I pop on a podcast that's, the echo chamber, and rah, rah, rah. and they'll ask questions, And so I'll give them my opinion on it, and I'll tell them, that's just my opinion. What do you think about that? And the biggest thing was, I think the biggest eye-opener for my daughter, Sophia, is Trump was still in the administration, and they were talking about the border and how all of these people were fighting him because he wanted to build a wall. And she's like, well, I think it's okay for everyone to come. I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Do you want your friends to come and hang out at the house? Yeah. Well, how do you get them there? You invite them, right? Cool. If somebody shows up at the door, what do they do first? They knock first, and then we allow them in, right? Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah. I said, what would happen if people started breaking through the windows and coming in? What would happen if people started just sleeping in our front yard? How would that make you feel? She's like, well, I wouldn't like that. I said, well, that's what's happening. Yeah. The border wall is just a way. It's not saying people can't come, but we don't want people to come who weren't invited or who weren't allowed in.
And who aren't going to follow the proper process.
Right, right.
Because there is a proper process.
Of course there is.
And I'm not saying it's easy, but there's a process.
One of my favorite coworkers is an immigrant from China. Well, from Hong Kong, right? So he doesn't claim to be Chinese. He's Hongkonese, okay? Because he is a British citizen first, okay? Because Hong Kong was colonialized for a very long time. Just recently got absorbed back into China, but he followed that whole process, and he knows more about the Constitution than I ever will.
For sure,
And he learned it when he was 7. He came here to America not knowing a lick of English, dude. This is when Sesame Street was actually good. He learned English from Sesame Street.
I'm not all bastardized.
But yeah, so that moment when she first kind of had her lights come on, and then she loves, like, one of my daughter's favorite musicians right now is, though it's very colorful language, is a guy named Tom McDonald. I don't know if you guys know who he is. No. So he is a rapper. Okay. And he is basically a political rapper, right? He just speaks the truth. Yeah. He's has no record label.
Independent,
completely independent. He makes his own. He produces his own music. Awesome. He writes his own music. His girlfriend makes all of their music videos. And he is 100%. All proceeds that go anywhere go straight to him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So and to me though, that's the epitome of independence. Yeah. Where he talks himself. There's a lot of things that he says where I'm like, that's a little bit pushing it. But he's really big. I think he's actually Canadian who came to America, right? Oddly enough. But
there are so many contradictions right now.
No, right.
A rapper from Canada.
And he's a white dude with dreads or like,
I was just going to say that as a joke.
He totally is.
But he totally is. He got tattoos on his face. Wow. He is, when you see him, you would not think that he would talk what he talks. Yeah. But, his big thing is that America is great and we're not making it great. In fact, one of his lyrics is I'm getting it horribly wrong here, but basically he says back in the day we used to hang American flags. We've taken those down and we've replaced them with BLM and rainbows. Yeah. And to me that's it. That's the problem, is that we are a large nation who's kowtowing to a very small minority. Yeah.
I love the fact that you broke down the border with your own home to the kids. It's not hard.
It's not hard.
We overcomplicate this way too much. I was sharing with Rick and Manny. Have you met Manny yet?
I don't think so.
He's awesome. I hope he can make it. My neighbor, I won't say names, Bobby.
Okay.
He was talking to you.
I'm not talking about you.
Okay, gotcha.
That's my neighbor's name.
Well, I'm glad, because I go by Bob, and if you called me Bobby, that might have been a fight. Just saying. Because we talked over.
At least I didn't have poop on my head.
Anyway, okay. Yes.
People are like, does anyone call you Ricky? Just my mom. That's it.
Just my mom.
It might have been a fight.
Good dude.
Yeah.
I have no issues with Bobby. He's lived in the neighborhood for a really long time. Last Wednesday, my wife, normally our yard guy comes around on Wednesday afternoons. Normally she's taking kids to the charter school. Okay. Right? She didn't that day because it was a day off. All of a sudden she looks in the backyard. Pepe, our lawn guy, is there, and he's talking with Bobby in our backyard.
Interesting.
She opens the door and she goes, "Hey, Bobby, what's going on?" And Bobby turns around and his eyes are as big as saucers. And she's like, "Did anyone invite you in here?"
Yeah, right.
And he started mumbling and making all, "I need to talk to Pepe." So I get home and it's real quick. I walk in, "Hey, what happened?" Walk over, knock on the door, step way back because I know it might be taken as aggression if I'm standing in his doorway.
Of course.
Opens the door. "Hey, Bobby, what happened in the backyard?" "Oh, I just need to talk to Pepe." Not going to happen again. You weren't invited.
Yeah.
Like, and then I'm literally, as I'm having this conversation or finish it up and I'm walking back, I'm thinking of Rick and Manny who come into my backyard every time we have a podcast.
Yeah.
Guess what? Jamie would be super cool if they just were in the backyard, but they have the wherewithal as really good friends to text or call and be like, "Hey, am I good to come?"
Right. Of course.
To your point.
Of course.
Like they don't just invite themselves in, even though they know that they have that like blessing.
Right.
And I've said it multiple times. They still have the decency to not supersede that.
Right.
And when he does that, it's like, oh,
it's a violation.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like you weren't invited. And now, by the way, you won't ever be invited because now the question is, were you coming into our backyard when my wife was out of like gone from the house when some of the kids are still home? Right? Like some of the older kids would stay home and it's like, okay, now there's a lot of issues here.
Right.
So anyways, don't want to beat that one dead, but it's like, it's real. Like that's a very obvious. It's like, listen, this is my property. If you want to pay my mortgage, then by all means, you can hang out in my backyard, but you don't pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
So get the hell out of my backyard.
Right.
You know,
unless you're invited.
Unless you're invited.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to build a wall. There's going to be a big, beautiful door right in the middle.
I mean, that's an exact quote, actually.
That was my favorite. He's like, big, beautiful door.
You know, the thing about that guy, I love Trump. So many people don't. And my boss is, I live a colorful life, apparently, because my boss is French-Canadian from Canada.
Is there something about Canadians that you're not telling us about?
You know,
are you trying to hint at you're moving to Canada?
I will never. Karen and I had this conversation one time. She's like, Canada's got great health care. I'm like,
what?
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Yeah.
Who told you this?
Yeah. It is not
Facts,
true.
Karen.
That's
Facts.
right. But
they don't care about your feelings.
No, not at all. But what's funny is, so my boss and I, he is a liberal to the liberal extent, right? I wouldn't call him a leftist, right? Yeah. But he's right on the cusp of it, right? Yeah. So him and I used to have, pre-COVID, kids would be like, settled in and all that stuff, and we would talk about the news. It was part of our daily routine, and him and I would just start talking, and the other adults, because we're in an intensive classroom, we have up to 8 other adults at any given time in the classroom, and they would just it's like a tennis match. They would just watch him talk about things. I would talk about things. He'd bring something up. I'd counter it. He'd then counter it. We'd go back and forth. Yeah. But one girl pulled me aside one time and she says, I have never learned so much in my life than listening to the two of you talk. And it was because we fundamentally disagreed.
Totally.
But I allowed him to talk. He allowed me to talk.
And there was decency,
of course,
and respect.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. We agreed to disagree. I don't know how many times I said, I understand your point. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. We don't have that anymore. But so my French Canadian boss was talking about the whole healthcare thing, and he's like, healthcare's free in Canada. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, my dad was a teacher and he had free health care and, we paid extra so he can actually have a room in the hospital and stuff. I went, what? You paid extra so you can have a room in the hospital? So it's not free health care.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's free health care for everyone. You just pay extra. I'm like, no. You're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like... they're giving you what
Options.
they're calling healthcare, but it's not really healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why people who have cancer in Canada come to America to get treatment. You know, or they're on a wait list for 7 years.
Yes.
You know,
that need a kidney transplant.
Yeah, right.
And they won't ever get one,
of course,
because the doctor deems them. Oh, you're 55, so the percent chance of that taking. And also longevity of life doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but if you were 5 years younger, then we would.
It's crazy.
You know, now
it's
I'm
nuts.
a stat. I'm not. You know, like we're not. Yeah.
It's nuts. And beyond that, you know, going back to I promised Karen I wouldn't get too political about things, but you know, Canada, they're okay with assisted suicide.
Yep.
I mean, that's how you know healthcare is really working.
Really working.
Because they're just like, oh, you're that sick? We'll just kill you. It's all right.
Just sign here. We'll
put you in a box. We'll bury you. You won't even know you're dead yet.
Take care of you, honey.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay. No. Just need your thumb right there.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Before you die, would you mind signing here? We laugh.
But it's sad.
The sobering fact is that's probably happening.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that if it's happening somewhere else, there's a crazy person in United States, more specifically California, that's like, we need to do that.
Yeah. It's mercy.
Of course.
It's mercy. You know, it's like, what? You know, again, like, there is redemption and grace to be had in suffering. And when we start to ignore that as a culture, I know Christians that go, Christ already did all this. I don't need to suffer. It's like, what?
Wow. Yeah.
Are we for real?
Seriously.
Like, no, like reality here. Yeah. Like, there's no way that we can go through this life without suffering.
Jesus himself said, you will suffer because of me.
Thank you. And
so for when people say stuff like that, you're just like, you obviously are one of those people who claim to know Christ, but maybe you need to have a better understanding of what you're saying. You know, or they're like, again, pastor or whatever, whoever they're learning from is pumping up big old rainbow up that. No, for sure. Yeah. You know, and that's one thing that, you know, I work with the youth a lot at my old church, and I'm at a new church now. It's a little bit of a slower start, but mainly because I got burnt out. Like being involved at church became a job, and I hated that part of it. But that was always my biggest fear. Is that I would tell kids something that they would interpret incorrectly, and they would see as truth, biblical truth, when it was in fact my, inadvertently or not, my view of the truth. And that always terrified me. You know, so anytime kids would talk to me about stuff, I'd tell them and I'd say, you know, which was very humbling at first, but I don't know the answer to that. You know, and as a teacher to kids, that's hard to say because there's a good chance that they could then, you know, be like, well, you don't know anything then, or whatever. But
in fact, I would argue that it drew them in. Yeah,
it actually did. Yeah. Because then there was you know,
there's
opportunity. And opportunities for us to learn together. I mean, and learning together, you know, attaining God's knowledge together is binding. You know, you have a certain connection with that. So man, what's going on? Sorry,
I'm wondering the same thing. What is that? Right? Sounds like
it's got to be one of your relatives, man.
No, I'm the only one allowed in Clovis.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. They built the wall around Clovis.
The first, first Mexican joke. I almost made one earlier. I was going to say I'm a Mexican with a full head of hair here, listening to two white guys talking about balding. Couldn't be me.
That's funny.
No, I think it was probably
so racist.
Yeah, you are. You don't know half of it.
I was actually going to say, is that your people?
No, that didn't sound like Chevy Asher events. Probably someone doing donuts.
Yeah. No, I think that's what it is.
Right here on Sierra.
I doubt it was right here. That's really close Who knows? But people do. I mean, when you leave, you'll see the skid marks. Yeah. Actually, my buddy
pissed off at the school right there.
I know, right?
Like it's like, why at that spot of all?
Because it's an open spot and people are dumb, you know.
And it's off a main road, so you can pull it off.
Yeah. Anyway,
all right, Bob. What's your wake up routine like?
Okay.
We're gonna dive in.
You want to know what I wish it was or what it actually is?
No, what it actually is.
Okay, fine. Usually I stay up way too late because my wife is she tends to work graveyard shifts or the late shift, right? So she gets home at 2:30, 4, or she stops at a friend's house for a cigar and it doesn't get home until 4 o'clock.
For the listener, he's mad dogging Rick right now.
That will never happen again.
I know.
Because I am never closing again.
Yes, I know. Yes. But anyways, yeah. So I like sleeping next to my wife, so I tend to push it as far back as I can.
Yep.
So then when I wake up in the morning, it's man, I'm telling you, I used to live off of 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I turned 40. And there was a switch that went off in my body, and it's like things started hurting, and it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I get up, get the kids ready.
That no-dose really kicked off.
No-dose apparently gave me osteoporosis and gave me I don't know what it did. It messed me up good, that's for sure. But yeah,
I can hear colors.
I can see sounds.
You want to know which one? Want to know which color is the loudest?
So it's usually getting the girls up. I usually handle all the getting ready stuff. Karen does her part too, but it's like she's either on her way to work or she's worked all night, you know, and so
a zombie,
dude. And so I take on that role as much as possible. She'll get herself up sometimes when she hears that I'm yelling too much. She will definitely step in before there's again my name on the front page of the paper.
It's turning into moths. It's fine,
it is moths. Actually, I guess it would be on the front page of your tablet or whatever it is. But so then I'm at work. I work. Breakfast is optional in my house because usually we don't have time. As I said, I have 13-year-old twin girls who don't know what it means to wake up on time. I wake them. I go in there at like 1:45 to wake them up, and they finally get out of bed at like 10 after. Their beauty sleep or whatever it is.
Whatever it's called these days.
And then the 6-year-old is screaming because she's like she can't tie her shoe and all that stuff, and it's whatever. So we get out the door and I drop the 6-year-old off at kindergarten, and my daughters either ride the bus or they ride with me, and that's a lot of fun because we get a chance to talk, and I have a strict rule that there's no phone use because that was the new endeavor. We gave them phones because they're in junior high now, so that's like a big step. Got to be able to communicate with them. Yeah. And immediately they found YouTube and they found all the other. Dude, it's horrible. I told them, I was like, it breaks my heart that I have to put restrictions on this for you. But the reality is I have to. Otherwise, the first time we didn't restrict it, one of them was on their phone for 12 hours.
Oh my God.
12 hours, man. And I'm just like, no. That's not cool. But anyway, so I work and I love my job, and I get to hang out with all kinds of kids of different abilities and personalities and it's so much fun. And we get to work with a lot of kids who have Down syndrome, and if you don't work with kids with Downs, everyone thinks that Downs is such a frightening thing, or that, dude, they're like the happiest people. Even the ones who are grumpy are just the happiest people,
And so Jamie, my wife's cousin, Molly, is Downs. And I've known some, coming and going in life, right? But like really gotten to know her over, now 15 years of being plus, because we obviously knew each other before being married. And there is a simplicity to Downs that and an authenticity of I'm like, why can't we all be this way? You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, it's just, I am who I am.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
It's like, there's no
take it or leave it. Yeah. So then I also do as you said in the the microbio, I also work with elementary kids with robotics, so I teach them junior robotics, right? Which is so much fun.
Yeah. It's Legos or just robotics?
It's Legos.
Okay, cool.
It's Legos. It's very simple. We're not doing any code or anything like that. What it really the main focus is to teach them teamwork, because kids don't know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Unless they're in a sport, then it's not a problem. But kids nowadays, especially when it comes to Legos and things like that, they
those aren't the kids that are going on a sports team.
No, they're not. Typically, yeah. And they're the ones who need to learn how to share, how to compromise, and
negotiate.
And at the beginning, because we have like a lesson plan. So like right now, we're learning about amusement park rides, right? So it's so cool because awesome. We do this whole exploration of the history of these amusement park rides, where they were started. Like my favorite is the Tilt-A-Whirl, right? So if you've ever been on a Tilt-A-Whirl, you know how it goes, right? Yeah. It was discovered, the man who invented it first got the idea by putting his son on top of a table, on top of a chair, and then started shaking the table.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And he's like, I can make a ride out of this.
No way.
Yeah, and that's basically how it came to be, right?
That's cool.
So then we make an adapted Lego version of it. Okay. But, again, it's like when I first started doing this gig, I wanted to make sure the kids finished. Like it's the most important thing. They need to have that sense of finished result.
Accomplishment.
Yeah. And then I'm like, nope, it's about teamwork. Yeah. And if they're not showing teamwork, they're not getting it done.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't matter what we achieve if you can't work as a team.
Right. Well, and not only that, but many hands make light work, right? Yeah. And if you learn to work together, you can work out a system. And so here I've got these like second graders that are crying because they didn't get it done. And I'm explaining to them, everyone else did. Yeah. What do you think might have been the problem? Yeah. And then I was like, how did you get along with your partner? Yeah. How did you solve this problem? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I love that part of it, but then we have summer camps, and that's where we do like stop motion. Okay. And so I do a lot of the video type stuff. So we do stop motion. We do like a comic creator where we actually make little mini comic books. We do actual robotics where we're actually coding little Lego robots. And
it's a lot of fun. I saw that, and both Declan and Liam have done that at school. Yeah. And I'm just like, boys, you guys and they love it because they're big Lego guys. And then I'm like, dude, you get to program this thing? And to your point, it's pretty simple. Yeah. But I'm like, dude, this is skill sets that grasp onto that because your dad was never exposed to this.
They're teaching coding to second graders.
Yes.
Wow. When I there's some, in fact, I think it was over here at Mickey Cox, right up the road here. Yeah. My after school class was in their tech room, and I would wait to set up. And I was watching these second graders learning how to make a video game. Again, very simple. They're using a program called Scratch. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a program where you basically input this code. It's called drop-in coding, and it's a first then type setup. So first you hit the start button. Then what happens? Well, then the program will move your little kitty cat forward. And it keeps going forward until what? Until you push the jump button, and then it jumps.
If then,
it's an if then. Yeah. That's all it is, right? Yeah. And that's this. I mean, it's the most cool. Basic sequence, but from that you can get so much more, right?
Dude, what I love about that, and that's what I was trying to convey to Declan and Liam, is dude, coding is logic. It's math and logic. So if you're doing even simple code, you can use that linguistically.
Absolutely.
Break down what people are telling you in an argument and go, wait, so you're saying if this happens, then this happens. Right. If this happens, then this happens. Right? Those are all premises.
Absolutely.
And then they're getting to a conclusion and they're like, oh, it's like, yes. See,
and we even use that verbiage. So when we're communicating to the kids and their code isn't working, we'll say, we'll break down the code. What's the logic? Yeah. I mean, that's literally what we tell them. Yeah. So, it's so fun, man.
That's super cool.
So then I get, so after I do that, and my 6-year-old is my little mascot because she can't stay in school. She's in kindergarten, and they don't do the after school program the whole time. So I pick her up between jobs, and she's building these things as a 6-year-old better than the 6th graders are.
That's awesome. She's just geeking out.
Oh, totally. And what's fun is that I'll partner, like it's required to have partners of 2, no more.
Yeah.
And I'll get these kids. They'll have one that's by themselves, and I'll say, Hazel, you're going to have a partner today, and they're like, this kid. Yeah. And she's just like zoop, 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 doing it all, right?
She's like, oh, that's funny. You didn't know that.
Yeah. It's so funny, man. But it's great, again, because, it's that perception, and it gives her a chance to kind of break her out of her shell a little bit, and she has a sense of purpose and
confidence.
Yeah.
To your point, if she's doing this in her spare time, she's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I got this down.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Side story, she, for the first time this week, I can't remember the day exactly, took the initiative to set up for me.
Nice.
And she said, Daddy, I want to set up for you.
6 years old?
Yeah. She said, Daddy, I want to set up for you. I said, okay. I said, the computer too? She's like, no, just everything else. I said, okay. And we have little kits, and so she set out all the kits. She got all my tablets that have the instructions, made sure they were all in the right, into the right spot. Yeah, awesome. Dude, it was great.
So she has the awareness to know, Dad does this every day.
Yep. Yeah, and I want to help.
She's like, and I can do this.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm seeing you do it every day.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
And but yeah, it was just it was a great dad moment. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, that's my kid.
The little,
yeah. Who's cutting onions in here?
Allergies, man.
Yeah. And then so after that, I get home and I yell at my teenagers for not doing their homework, and then. That's pretty much it. I do like to game, so that's my downtime. So when the kids go to bed, and that's usually what takes up my time before Karen gets home, is I'm either watching some documentary on Netflix where I'm just like, what is wrong with humanity?
On aliens, and how they,
or like the dude that thought it would be better to murder his wife and kids instead of just divorcing her to get with this. Floozy, whatever. So that, or I play I like playing like shoot 'em games. So I'm too old to be playing them, but I love it. I love it. I'm sorry, I played 007 as a kid, and it just never left me. It's in my blood.
You are speaking my language. I haven't played one in a really long time, but that was actually, I had a pretty big addiction when Jamie and I got first married. So that's one of those like.
Yeah, I don't know if I would.
It's a whole different side.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily call mine an addiction, though. My wife will say, "Hey, it's been like 6 hours, and you said you were going to be in bed 10 minutes ago. In 10 minutes, 6 hours ago." And I'm like, but I'm almost done. Just give me 5 more minutes, Yeah.
But it's not a problem, Karen.
Okay, so maybe it is. All right. Okay. Yeah. Karen, you're not listening to this, okay? You're not hearing this. But yeah, so my day, it's pretty routine, It's pretty routine. And I've taken joy in routine. I'm normally a spontaneous person.
Yeah.
We go on vacation. I don't like to plan, so I'd much rather just experience. Karen's the planner.
You and me resonate on that.
So she gets mad at me because she's like, you never plan a date. I'm like, you want a date? Let's go right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, but where are we going? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well,
she hates it.
You can ask. So my really good buddy Matt went through high school the whole bit, and his wife, I love Mandy. Mandy, I love you. I highly doubt you're even listening to this, but she's the one that literally has like every hour like detailed out.
Yes.
And we've gone on a few trips, and I'm like, Matt, you guys have fun.
Yeah.
Because that's not happening.
Yeah, that's my mother-in-law, man.
Yeah, like I'm not doing it.
Yeah, my mother-in-law, I love her so much, but when we go on vacation with them, I tell them like, you do you, boo, because I'm chilling. I'm on vacation usually we go to the beach. I'm a mountain guy, but she loves the beach, and so she gets what she wants because she plans.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the beach. I want to sit at the beach, and they're like, "Well, we wanted to do this, and we wanted to explore that." And okay, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
No, I really.
If
can't.
I stumble upon it, cool.
Mind you, I'm good with like one thing or two things where it's like, hey, we're going to do this today. Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
But we're not doing like it's detailed out to every minute. We got to be in the car by this time because we're going to go do this. Yeah. And then we got to be in the car by this time because we're going to go do this. Like, no. Might as well just go home.
Seriously,
that's what home's
when
like.
When you need a vacation from your vacation, you've done something wrong. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
All right. Thanks for sharing about your routine. All right. How many times have you been pulled over or interacted with the police?
Oh, boy. Well, I got really good at dodging the cops as a kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
How young?
Oh, man. Preteen to early teens.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up behind the rodeo grounds in Clovis.
Yeah.
And so we would hop into the rodeo grounds, especially on rodeo weekend. And we would feed all of the horses candy and, like carrots and apples too, but whatever was in our pockets, really.
Candy.
Yeah, and these were the performing horses, right? They were in their stalls, and we're like, "You want some of this?" And then it turned into, "This is gonna mess them up so bad," Yeah. So, but yeah, we got pretty good at that, and yeah, I'm telling you, it's by the grace of God that I have never stepped foot into juvie or jail or anything. Yeah, but I talk a lot, and I've talked myself out of a lot of tickets too.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I impressed one of my buddies because we got pulled over. And by the time we were done, the cop didn't give me a ticket.
Was thanking you for
he was just like, hey, just remember, you got to slow down just a little bit. Just slow down a little bit and you'll be fine. And my buddy was looking at me and he's like, how the hell did you do that?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
just a little bit.
Just
Bob.
a little
just
bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. But I have gotten my fair tickets.
He's calling you Bobby by the end of the conversation.
Right. Yeah. He's like, and your mom dinner 5:00, right? Of course. Yes. Yeah. No. So Karen and I, before we had kids, we wanted to experience all the fun stuff. We had kids 7 years into our marriage.
Gotcha.
So the very first splurge we got was the G35, the Infiniti G35, which is a sports car, right?
I know what you're referencing.
It was her car, but I drove it.
Yeah.
And we broke it in by driving it to Vegas.
Nice.
And so
desert roads, baby,
dude, the freeway. Yeah. So I'm driving down the freeway. We're on our way back from Vegas. We're driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden, Karen says, "I think that was a cop back there." I look down. I'm in triple digits, and I'm like, crap. Yeah. Like, this is bad news, right?
Yeah, this is like tow range. Right
it was bad.
Yeah.
So, like, it was to the point they were radioing or something because another cop came in and was behind me. Like, I had pumped the brakes and I had slowed down, but by the time I had slowed down, the cop was already on.
80.
Yeah, and the cop was on me, right? Yeah. So he pulls me over and we're talking, and he's like, "Oh, it didn't even have plates. It's not. This was in 2005, I think, or so. So no plates or anything, before the paper plates, yeah." And he's like, "New plates, where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Fresno, California, and we broke in the car." He's like, "Yeah, you did." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, man, the car before this, it was.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. But I was small talking. I was like, the car we had before this was just this little 4-banger thing, and we got this, and it's just got so much oomph. And honestly, I didn't realize I was going that fast. And he's like,
such a freaking liar.
I will tell you though, that car would get to 80 miles an hour before you even knew it.
Yeah,
dude,
sure.
It was quick, you know, and it had I don't know if it had twin turbos in it or what, but man, when that thing hit, it just hit hard. Like you feel it in your chest kind of hard, right? Yeah. And so I knew I was going fast, but I didn't think I was going that fast, right?
Well, and on those highways,
dude,
it's
really
straightaway. Hard. Yeah,
it was a straightaway. It's like, it was when you first come out, it's when you're leaving, it's like this long stretch when you get to the last little casino place. It's like a little town outside of Vegas, and then there's just nothing, right? And so anyway, so they pulled me over, and I tell them that, and so I was small talking with them and stuff, and he's like, "Well, I got to give you a ticket, man. There's no way I can't give you a ticket."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." He's like, "But I'm going to get you at exceeding 65.
Wow.
And I said, really? Thank you. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, you don't need to argue anymore. Yeah.
And so I.
And if you had, he would have been like, okay, asshole.
Yeah, no, totally. I was just like, I was blown away because, you know, for those who don't know, if you go 30 miles over the speed limit, that's reckless driving.
Yeah.
They can impound your car.
Yep.
They could suspend your license.
Yep.
You could even serve jail time if you really, if they really wanted
pushed
to.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got me to seating 65, so it was a $190 ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool, let's drive.
Yeah.
And honestly, talk about a learned lesson. You know, I'm the guy who, on the way to Pismo Beach on the, you know, the 41 or the 46, I'm going 65 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, no.
With 6 cars ahead of you.
Yeah.
Like space.
Yeah.
You're just like, nope.
Nope, not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you want to pass me, there's plenty of room, bro. Go for it.
Dude, like have your way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but as a kid, man, you know, we used to do the thing with the horses. I had a buddy that we used to get into all kinds of trouble with.
Okay.
We thought we were going to be little gangsters growing up because, you know, the bulldogs were a big thing back then, and being a white kid.
What year was this?
This was probably 91.
Yes.
Between 91, 95, like around that time.
Like
junior high years.
Yes, but like LA rap and the gang, all that was like,
dude, I bought
in full swing.
One of the first CDs I bought was a collaboration album called Bloods and Crips.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
legit. Where I thought
Yeah.
I was the kid who had the khakis and I didn't
flannel?
wear red because I didn't want to get in trouble, but it was always like brown or something. I had the shaved head, like shaved sides, slick back head. I loved having the snub nose Nikes. Like that was me. That, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but we used to do. I lived, you know, behind rodeo grounds. There's the intermediate school that's near there. May or may not have broken into their snack bar. Stole candy that we then fed to the horses. You know, can't confirm or deny any of that. But my friend was very small and he fit into very small spaces. So
I walked into the cafeteria. The cafeteria is beautiful. I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny I was there, but
So nothing out of you, nothing. He's just looking.
I'm trying to behave.
Rick is just looking, shaking his head. So, but yeah, and you know,
trying is the key word.
These horses like candy. I fed one a Kit Kat. I said, "Wow, they like candy." I think the horse's name was Nancy Pelosi. Was she the one you called Horseface?
I think she was. Damn, bro. Wow, that came out of dark left field.
That's okay. That's my kind of humor, man. I love it. I love it.
I was trying to not derail the not so lightning round.
It is. This is classic right
officially
here.
Derailed.
I'm okay with derailing. It's fun.
I love it.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get to the book excerpt till like 33 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm good with it. We're at an hour and 15.
Oh,
we're fine.
All right.
We're fine.
Okay.
All right.
These logs have barely sparked.
Exactly. All right. What is your greatest accomplishment or achievement to date, Bob?
Man, I should have studied beforehand. There's a lot. Not that a lot that I kind of hang my hat on, but I think that it's just my wife.
Yeah.
You know, like I've been through a lot. I'm just a dude, just an average dude, and I'm pretty messed up. And my wife has just put up with me through all of it, and I see that as my accomplishment because we've done it together. Yeah. You know, and my kids too. Like I love my kids. I think that there are moments where I'm like, man, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
You know, but there's so many other times where I'm just like, they're going to grow up to be amazing people. Yeah. You know. That and being able to out-talk cops and getting speeding tickets reduced, you know, that kind of stuff. Though now, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to leave here. Some dude's going to do the peeling out. I'm going to get blamed for it. Karen's going to get a phone call from work saying, are you the wife of Mr. Bobby Raymon?
Raymond.
With a D? Yeah. Oh, man. Talk about issue. When I was a kid, I had I remember third grade. My last name is Raymon. No D. No D. Okay.
Did I say D? By the way?
No.
Okay, cool.
I'm over it now. But in third grade,
I was questioning.
My name was spelled, and it had Bobby. You know, they put your name like on your desk so you know where you sit. First day of school, D at the end of my name. I ripped it off the desk. And I said, "That's not me." I said, that is not me. I had a big issue.
Attitude
I had a big issue with my last name not being spelled correctly. Yeah. And what's crazy is I did not have a good relationship with my dad either, but it didn't matter.
Interesting.
It did not matter. But yeah, so that D, man, that was that was the bane of my existence when I was a kid.
You don't mess with my surname.
Right. Do you know what happens when you get my name wrong? I will turn you into a turnip and eat you for dinner.
So we went from Trump to Putin.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I like Trump. He's a good guy. He reminds me of mashed potatoes sometimes. Have
you seen the montage of where Putin's in like conventions, like, you know, United Nations,
okay.
Not that they're part of United Nations,
sure.
but things like that. How many times people have not shaken his hand? Have you seen this montage? No. Dude, no. It is like slayed.
Really?
Oh, dude, straight up, the dude has been like, it's just this montage where he's like it's like they're in line and he's one of the people, like head of state, and these people are coming down, and he's like doing that, and he sticks his hand out, and the people just straight up like,
wow,
nope, you know, move on to the next. And it's like multiple times of just these different snippets, and I'm like, you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's something that is just, again, people's opinions on things, you know. Yeah. I have a very different opinion about the whole Russia, Ukraine, and all that stuff. And I won't discuss it tonight because I don't want to start fights with anybody. But again, it's like, you know, you get into these situations where you have people who don't know all of the information.
Yeah.
And my opinion changed after I worked, again, you ready for this? Again, my coworkers, okay? I have a French-Canadian boss and one of, yes, and a Honkanese who's my go-to guy. And then we had a coworker for a while who was Ukrainian.
Oh, okay.
And she was actually pro-Russia.
Interesting.
Because she said they're not telling you the whole story. And so she broke down like the whole Baltic Divide and all of the things and where Russia feels justified in collecting their part of the land that should have been theirs, but was taken from them and would promise to be neutral and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so it changed now, I'm not saying that he is like a saint.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do believe that there is a lot more going on than what people... Bottom line is, I think that the Ukraine is basically a giant laundromat for Biden. That's just my
for
final.
The US.
Well, for Biden specifically, because if you look at the situations with the son and all that other stuff. But again, I'm sorry, I'm back.
No.
I'm retracting. I'm backing up.
Rabbit hole here.
Yeah,
I think you'd be surprised, Bob.
Yeah,
where I would stand. Like we actually did like a topic episode on this, and war gets messy.
Yeah, it does.
It's not black and white. It's very gray.
Right.
And anyone that tries to convince you otherwise has never been in war or has never talked to a veteran that's seen combat.
Sure.
And I'm not talking. We can talk about geopolitical stuff all we want.
Right.
The reality is that the stories and what's happened between those two countries for hundreds of years, we have no comprehension.
None.
Like the infighting between them has been going on before the U.S. was even conceived as a country.
Yeah.
So, like, to try and understand culturally what's going on there, to your point, it's super convoluted.
Yep.
It's super, like, to untangle that and peel away all the layers of the onion. It's just a mess, dude.
Well,
and to underscore it is we have to then get into the discussion of like just war. Is it, whatever is going on there, is it a just war? And there's a lot of like, to me, I'm convinced neither side is right.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there isn't like there isn't this like I'm pro Ukraine or I'm pro Russia. I have no bearing. What I do see is the fact that it's just continuing to escalate. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just tit for tat. And it's like that's not the end state is that we just obliterate each other.
Right. And I have very libertarian views on a lot of things.
Sure.
I personally don't think that we should be there to begin with.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that let them handle their own.
Yeah.
Let us be the people who go in and help rebuild what is left of it,
which we're terrible at anyways.
Of course,
so.
but I don't like the fact that we're involved in it because now we're a part
no
of
business and no bearing.
Well, and we're a part of the blame game.
Yeah,
and I don't think that we've got enough. Like, let's take all of that money that we're giving to Zelensky, billions, dude, billions. And let's take care of us.
Yeah,
and we've lost that.
And it's just like back to your point about laundromat. The reason why we're there is that we're trying to save face.
Right.
Because we know exactly what we've been using Ukraine for, which is to launder money for the CIA.
Right.
It's totally there. Anyone that wants to argue, I'll provide a ton of documentation. But it's like, guys, that's how we funnel money to all the other clandestine places in the world for us.
Right.
They've literally been our bank to just make dark money go in different places so that we can do the things that U.S. citizens don't understand we need to do to protect this country.
Right. Well,
and I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What is your greatest struggle as a Christian?
As a Christian,
yeah,
I probably say there's a couple of like big ones. I think my biggest thing is my mouth. Mm-hmm. I curse a lot. And what's tough is that as my kids are getting older, it's starting to get directed at them from time to time. My mind starts just drifting off into wanting to combat them as if they were just, some other adult who's ready for what I have to give them. Yep. And they're not. Yeah. And, and it's tough, man, because there's so many opportunities that were missed because I pop off.
Yeah.
And then I spend my time apologizing or trying to fix it or going even deeper and being like, well, I'm already here. I might as well, and that
I already
sucks,
screwed myself.
Man.
So let's just keep going.
Might as well. Yeah. Might as well dig the grave to the 6 feet instead of stopping halfway.
Yeah.
So it's, I think that's the one. Another big one too is, there are many times where I find myself trying to save face.
Okay.
Where, it's the pride thing, I guess. Yeah. Instead of admitting that I'm wrong, just doubling down on it. Like I said, my wife has accused me of gaslighting more than once, and she's probably justified in that. And if you don't know what gaslighting is, look it up, please, and then please forgive me. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. As a man, you forget what it means to be sensitive at times. You forget what it means to your tone and things. I've always been my time at Smart and Final was management, and so I always spoke with authority. Just because I needed you to get it done and I don't need questions. So if I speak as if I know what I'm talking about, then that I know what I'm talking about. It needs to get done. Yeah. 90% of the time, that's true. There's 10% where I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
But you got to be
But I have to be there, right? Yeah. And so, again, that's where it's communicated to my wife, to my kids, and I find myself like there's this movie, I forget what it's called. It's got a guy who's like on a plane, and in his mind, he's just talking to everyone, and everyone else is like, sir, if you don't quiet down, we're going to have to get you off this plane. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to leave this plane. And he's like, I'm not yelling. And they're like, sir, you are raising, and it's hit through his perspective, but the reality is that he's just, yelling and screaming, but he doesn't see it that way.
Gotcha.
And that's how I get, where I just become very matter of fact, and my tone doesn't change. And so even if I'm trying to convey,
it's my way or there's the door.
Yeah. But even if I'm like trying to be kind to my daughters, it gets lost.
Interesting.
Because I'll say, my daughter is struggling with math or whatever, and I'll say, hey, you need to get that done, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and you need to stop messing around because I know the right way, you don't. I'll say something like that.
Yeah.
She'll get the right answer, and I'll say, see, good job. Like, I gave her, I said good job, but it's like
underhanded.
Yeah,
like you didn't get it without me showing you,
right? And not even then. But instead of being like, instead of doing like, oh, honey, I know you could do it. I told you if you just tried. Yeah. No, it's like, see, I told you. You know what I mean? It's like you should have listened to me.
Now do the other 14 problems.
And I'm going to come back and check them. They better be right. Yeah. So I think that's it's my biggest failings, I guess, is just that it all boils down to my voice. I just talk, and it gets me in trouble. Yeah. It really does. Yeah.
The tongue.
It is, man. It's a double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword.
They call it that for a reason, man.
It's so powerful, and powerful in the greatest of ways and in the ugliest of ways.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you for sharing, Bob.
Yep.
All right, final question for the not so lightning round question. Are you an Office fan?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're gonna get this.
All right.
Why are you the way that you are?
That's funny. Well, gosh,
damn
man.
It, Bob.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, I am a messed up guy in so many ways. It's by the grace of God that I am here even today. As I said, man, there are just so many things that it could have gone so bad. Yeah. So incredibly bad. I mean, it's like growing up, my wife is the only woman I've ever been intimate with. Okay.
That's fantastic.
And I made that choice early on because I was afraid of STDs and stuff like that, right? Gotcha. It had nothing to do with God. Yeah. It was just the decision I wanted to make. Yeah. That actually saved me for my wife because there were so many times where I could have gone to places been intimate with girlfriends or people that I had met, and it could have been bad, right? Because I did not know the Lord until I met my wife, basically, until we started dating. Yeah. When I had first, let me backtrack a little bit. My great grandmother was like the matriarch or whatever you want to call it of a local church, right? She was. Everybody knew her. She sat in the same place. She was in charge of all the luncheons. She was that lady. Yeah, ingrained in the community. Yes, absolutely. And when she passed, everybody mourned, right? Yeah. It wasn't just, it was like... the whole community. The whole community.
Literally was there.
Yeah. And so I attended that church, and I had an opportunity when I was 13 or 14, I think, to go on a mission trip to Mexico. Okay. And what we would do there is we would either fix a church or we would minister to this orphanage, to the kids there. So I get there, and we're there for like 5 days, right? So the second or third day, they have every night they do like a church service, and they're talking about the importance of Jesus in your life, and I was a lonely kid. My dad was never around. He left when I was 3. My grandfather was my father figure, but he was an alcoholic, and my mother never kept the job down, so we lived with my grandparents. And so I was always like starving for attention that was just mine. Right? And so the pastor said, if you accept Christ tonight, I guarantee you that there will be people coming up to you, loving on you, caring for you, helping you through the process of accepting Christ. And that was my enticement. Wow. Okay, so... Yeah,
there's a lot of problems with that.
But and here's the thing, though. How common is that even now?
Sure,
right?
Totally.
So he's like, all you have to do is, everyone bow your heads. If you want to take Christ into your heart, stand up now. And I was one of the people that stood up. Oddly enough, I was an odd kid. I was kind of a troublemaker kid.
Okay.
Nobody talked to me.
Okay.
Except for like the old dude that always felt obligated to talk to the kids or whatever, right? So I didn't get that feeling that I was promised.
Oh.
And so it kind of was like...
backfired.
Yeah. And so it didn't necessarily like taint me with God, because I still had this kind of like... I still went with it, but my behavior never changed. I never gained my godly conscience, if you will. The Holy Spirit never filled me, so I never got that kind of twinge of should you or shouldn't you, that thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I met my wife, and it was crazy. She invited me to church, and so we were early in our dating, and she's like, just come. And I'm like, church isn't really my thing, like I'm Christian or whatever, that kind of response.
And Karen, I could just imagine Karen.
And she was like, just come. It'll be good. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I went, and it was good. It was fun. I liked the people. So I went for about a month, and then it was crazy. So I'm sitting there in the pew, and like I just got this chill. And the pastor started, like the worship songs started singing, and I knew all of them. Like they were like songs that I used to sing when I was at my old church. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this is kind of cool, right? This is weird, but cool. And then the format of the church is they would do music for like 2 or 3 songs, and then somebody would come up and they would basically talk about their week, and it was a different person designated every week, and they would pray over a passage, they would read the passage, and then they would move on to the next step.
Gotcha.
So this guy comes up, and I've never met him before. I'd seen him around. I find out later that he's a brain cancer survivor. He actually had part of his brain removed, right?
Whoa.
Which isn't really important to the story, but it's just like he survived that cancer and was able to stand up, and I don't even remember everything he said.
Yeah.
I just know that everything he said was talking to me.
Nice.
And it was like every single detail was like chipping away at my...
Isn't that interesting?
It's nuts.
How like you have these moments where it's like, I just had this like a couple weeks ago where Mass priest, goes for his homily after gospel reading. And it literally was like everything that I'd been praying about, trying to like wrestle with, like in the heart and in the interior life, spiritual life. And it's just like literally God's just like,
Yeah.
But I can't tell you exactly what he said.
Sure. No, not at all. But because I think it's because, God gives us moments.
Yeah.
He gives us moments because sometimes it's like, when the TV is malfunctioning. Back in the day when you had a fuzzy TV, what'd you do? You smack the side of it, right? Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what God does sometimes. He just kind of gives us these nuggets of knowledge that smacks us into perspective, So this guy, he's talking, and then some more music goes, and then the pastor comes up, and he's actually my best friend's dad, right? Which he wasn't my best friend at the time, but he was my best friend's dad. And then as he's preaching, the lights, it felt like what started off as like the whole room filled. By the time his sermon was done, it was a spotlight on me. Nobody else in the room. That's how it felt. It was incredible.
It wasn't,
right?
It wasn't actually happening, but it felt like
it. Like I was so engaged and I was so enthralled with what he had to tell me. And it was a message about, the saving grace of God, Jesus Christ's death, his resurrection, and the fact that he was a living sacrifice to atone for the sins that we could never pay for on our own. Yep. And I remember him saying, he's like, I'm a pastor and I'm a sinner. And I was just like, what? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I had a rough idea, but that never really...
The dot never connected.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah. So no, you guys are perfect.
Yeah. So
you have
course,
your life figured out.
Of course, or like the once you're saved, then you can no longer sin.
Right.
And that's just crazy.
Bullshit.
Total. So anyways, so then again, it's like this pastor does this message, and I'm just like, my feet, I'm floating.
Sorry about the smoke. Dude.
Oh,
you good?
I'm a camper, dude. Okay. Right. You notice I haven't twitched or anything, right?
I just have to say it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. And I smoked for a very long time, so
this is just
it's not so bad. Yeah. It's a woody as opposed to nicotine. But
that's awesome.
Anyway, so then my wife's parents come up to me and they say, "Hey, we were thinking about going to spend a day at the Sequoias after church. Would you like to join us?"
Awesome.
Well, I love camping. That was the one joy that my grandfather gave me. We'd go up past Tamarack, up in the deep country, stay there for 3 weeks at a time, off the grid, right?
Yes.
I mean, middle of June, potatoes freezing kind of country, right? Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to. So we're going, and we're just small talking. I don't know them very well. Yeah. Like I've only maybe shooken her dad's hand. He's a quiet guy. Never really talked to him. Mm-hmm. And here they are taking me up. And I'm like, are they going to murder me? You know what I mean?
Is this a rite of passage?
Right. Like, what's going on here, right? And it was crazy. So we get up to the Sequoias. I open up the door. I'm sitting in the back seat. I get out, and I just get this hit of smell, right? The pine trees in the air and the crispness of the air. And it was like God saying, I'm here. Oh. And I, mind you, I had this claim of Christianity, but I did not know who Christ was.
And you weren't living
not at all
a Christian life.
Not at all. Not at all. And so, Karen and I were kind of spending our day together, being boyfriend and girlfriend and doing whatever. Yeah. And she said, "Hey, I'm going to go use the restroom or something." She got pulled away from me, and so I'm by myself, and I just start walking this trail a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I come around, and it was like, I'm going to try not to get too teary-eyed on this because it's so insane. Yeah. I come around, and it was like, to everyone else, it seemed like nothing special, right? But like the way the lights hit and the way God was just talking to me, it was his proclamation of his existence. Nice. And I literally fell on my knees. And I'm not a dramatic guy. Yeah. I fell on my knees, and I was just uncontrollably sobbing. And I was just like, And Karen's like coming back from the bathroom, like, "Did you fall down? What's going on? Is there a bee on your back? What, like whatever." But in that moment, I recognized who God was. I knew who he was. And the sermon pointed with like, neon lights that Jesus Christ is God. Yeah. And that was the real turning point because it gave me perspective. It allowed me to settle down. It allowed Karen and I to really, because she'd been a Christian for a long time, but she had gone astray. Gotcha. And so she had kind of lost faith in humanity, basically, and just lived the best life she could, regardless of who she hurt, including herself. Gotcha. And so we really buckled into our faith, and I'm new in my faith, and so she was excited that everything was exciting to me, and so it really was a turning point. Awesome. But
how cool is that like in nature, right, in this like the smell that like you getting out of the car, and then you're if we probably, to your point, if we went back to the same spot,
I couldn't tell you where it was.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, you couldn't tell me where it was, or you couldn't tell anyone where it was. But I probably would gander to say, too, it's not like this majestic place. No. What was happening was like this connection of the sermon. You mentioned the sermon, right? Something about that was alive. Right? That's the only way that really, like, it's the eternal word that's being, like, transmuted into our soul, right? Sure. But then it's the fact that in creation, right, when we're removed from the things that distract us, right, what we were talking about, like, before, starting, all of a sudden there's this recognition of there's no way that this just happened by accident, right? Like, you're looking at all this stuff around you and you're going, this can't possibly just be like something ran into something else And then boom,
Sure.
life began. It's
Absolutely.
like there has to be something beyond this.
Yeah. And that's exactly where it was. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like it could have been Mary Poppins with a bird landing on the shoulder, and I would have been like, "Hey, God," you know what I mean? Because it was just that intense. You know what I mean? And I had never felt that way before.
Yeah,
I'd never felt love like that before.
Yeah.
And I do attribute that to me being able to love my wife the way that I do.
Yeah.
With this unconditional prospect, because that is a God-given attribute.
Totally.
Because as humans, we might have been designed during, with Adam and Eve, but we're in a fallen world, and unconditional is not a human trait.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And so, we have been through some really hard times, and going back to the original question is, how the heck did I end up the way that I am? Yeah. It's nuts, man. It's like God, through the thick and the thin, the good and the bad. God does not purposely do bad things to us, right? But we have testings that make us stronger.
Yep.
And it's a pass or a fail.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I failed a lot. But those times that I did pass, oh my God, like literally,
worth it.
My God, worth it. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Let's throw a log on the fire, take a break, and then we'll jump back in.
Sounds good.
Cool. Hey guys, Eli here from Circa Ignem. Hope you're enjoying this week's guest so far. Just want to take a quick second to invite you to join our online community on all your social media platforms. We'll be sharing wholesome, Christ-centered content, and you can always stay up to date on the latest news and episodes. Listen, like, comment, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Thank you. And we're back. Bob, thanks for sharing all that you did in the very not so lightning round.
Well, that was supposed to be the lightning round, yes.
Now you see it?
Now you don't.
And if that's the lightning round, are we here for another 12 hours or what?
What's funny is the not so lightning round section typically is the longest.
Right.
And then
well, I mean, those are heavy questions. Those aren't like, I guess for some people, they could just be a real quick whatever, but as I said before, I'm long-winded and I don't mind sharing my story about things. And, your testimony is your greatest power when it comes to communicating Christ. And so why not?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because I thought in my mind that it was these are pretty just direct questions that should be pretty quick.
Sure.
But no, there's a story behind everything.
There is a story, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask how many times you've been stopped by the cops, there's got to be, unless you've never been pulled over, there's at least one story.
Yeah. Oh, where to begin on this? Yeah. All right. So, where were you born?
I was born right here in Fresno, Cali.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's great because Karen and I are a day apart from each other.
Oh, really?
I think I knew them.
Born in the same hospital.
No way.
Delivered by the same doctor.
Wow.
And we found this out when the parents first met after we decided we were going to get engaged, and I went and asked permission and all that stuff. And we're like, maybe our parents should meet each other. Mm-hmm. So we had our first, my mom came over to meet, and the mom started talking. Karen's mom remembered seeing me in the hospital as a baby.
No way.
Because I was the only baby in an incubator because I was a preemie. Oh, and this was back when babies were still in a nursery.
Yep.
So she remembered seeing me.
Wow.
And felt sorry because I was the only one in the incubator, and she felt sorry that poor little baby was in there all by itself. Oh. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
How
preemie were you?
I was only 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, TMI time. I was born without the flap on my butthole was not fully developed yet or whatever.
Wow. I love it, Bob. We're just going right at it. This is why I love this podcast.
I'm sorry.
No, don't say sorry. Well, my butthole.
Now I've got this leaky problem, and no, I'm kidding.
Too many Takis.
Someone's like, "Hey, Bob, you're a total asshole." No, I now have a total asshole.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I had one.
Didn't always.
Mine was surgically implanted.
It is as humanly perfect as possible.
Yes. No, but it was like it was just a little flap, and so the only reason why.
So was it flapping in the wind? Or?
No, it was a piece of.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I guess from time to time, if I broke
I'm trying to tell the story.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Eli's like so mesmerized. What did the fart sound like?
Like this. I can't whistle. I'm laughing. Yeah. It was like.
Is that a horse?
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. Anyways, so I was born without that. I mean, I had it, but it was just a flap over it. Okay. So they actually were going to do surgery, and a nurse just used a rectal thermometer and fixed the problem, and just popped that thing, and so they kept me in the incubator as a precautionary.
Old days when a little elbow grease went a long way.
A running start. It was just a running start. That's all they needed.
A rectal thermometer and a piece of gum. That's all she needed.
What is she, MacGyver? So we were we were in the same room together at birth. Okay. Yeah, so we're only about 8 hours apart from each other or something like that.
That's so cool.
Which is very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And even growing up, like we went to her grandmother passed away, and her and I were still just dating at the time, and so I go with her to the wake, and it's at this Catholic church in Kerman. Okay. And like 2 of my aunts show up. Now they're not my blood relatives. Sure. I grew up in a very I joke that I wanted to marry a Mexican girl, and I got a coconut because she is brown on the outside, but she's a white girl. Okay?
Oh, so she's like Rick.
Yeah.
Wait. Did I just stump Rick? Rick did not have a comeback there.
just her. She went with way more of a hood side than I do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, she's hood. I love her to death, but she's scrappy. But yeah, so where I grew up, a lot of my neighborhood, we just all adopted each other, right? Yeah. My next door neighbor was my mom's best friend growing up, and so their her sons are 2 years and 1 year older than me. Okay. So we all grew up together. So anyway, so my tia and her sisters show up at this funeral. I think it was sisters there. They show up at this funeral, and I'm just like, "What are you guys doing here?" Yeah. And they knew each other. Like her family knew my family. And this was long before her and I knew each other. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. And how we met was a lot of fun too. But if we have time, I'll tell the story. But
no, we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
We'll get there
for sure.
So what's your earliest childhood memory?
Oh man, earliest childhood memory was when my dad and mom were still together. We lived in North Hollywood. And my dad was gone all the time. Okay. And I don't know what he did for work, but he was gone all the time. And it's like fragmented memory, but it's still there. I think I was maybe 4. Damn. And I remembered, so I had wandered off. Okay. And my mom was doing groceries or something, and she left the gate open. I don't remember any of that. She reported me missing. I was gone for a long while. I'm 4 at the time, right? They found me. Some guy. The part that I do remember. Do you remember Mr. Roper from Sesame Street? He ran the general store there. He's like older man, bow tie, whatever. Yeah. So I remember a man like that. Okay. Taking my hand, walking me across the street, and taking me into this place. I think it was a funeral home. And that's where they but that's where they found me, right? Okay. That's where they found out that I was missing. Well, my mom obviously knew I was missing, but they found me. So my mom tells the story. Apparently, I had wandered off, and I was about 3/4 of a mile away. Okay. And I was on a street that's busy like Blackstone. I made it to the middle of the street. I was on the median, and I was just sitting there throwing dirt and rocks at cars and stuff. Just kind of doing whatever. Wow. Yeah. So that's the earliest memory. I remember the man, like I remember looking up and seeing the man with the bow tie and taking his hand and
getting you to safety.
And getting me to safety, But the rest of it is just my mom retelling that part. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you were born here and then
lived in
Hollywood.
So my dad and mom, so when I was a kid, it was a very kind of a weird situation. My dad had been married previously, got divorced, met my mom, and 8 months later they were married.
Gotcha.
Then a year later or so, I was not the result of a shotgun wedding, so it was like nothing like that. But he was an entrepreneur, I guess you could say. He was a manager at Coco's. I don't know if you guys remember Coco's. Mm-hmm. It's a restaurant kind of like Denny's.
Okay.
And so they had given him an opportunity to open a new store down south.
Gotcha.
And so he took my mom and me, and we went down south, and we settled in North Hollywood. My mom had always lived here.
Okay.
When she didn't live here, it was when she was not in Fresno or Clovis, it was with family. So she had a lot of anxiety. She was only 21 at the time. She was, different culture back then. She was just a homebody. So she got homesick and wanted to come home. My dad said, "No, you're my wife. You're going to stay here," which I felt like is the appropriate thing to do. Mm-hmm. But my mom and her family felt otherwise, so my mom came back and my dad stayed. So that's where the initial separation happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily over a very big spat, and then that happened.
No, but he was a Rolling Stone. He actually was married, I think, a total of 5 times. I've just recently found out I have a half sister that from a girl. Okay, ready for this one. My dad and his dad were having relations with the same woman.
Oh, gosh.
And the woman thought that the baby was actually my grandfather's.
Oh, gosh.
DNA testing, now that we have all the 23andMe or whatever, my sister did the DNA test thing, and we found out what we always thought she was my aunt turned out to be my half-sister. Yeah. My dad swore that he never did anything with the woman, but obviously that as Maury Povich would say, that is a lie. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did they know that they were seeing the same chick?
So I don't think my dad knew initially. I think that it ended as soon as my dad found out.
Okay.
I don't know all the details, but I do know that it was kind of like a family blemish, Okay. Yeah. But my grandfather was quite an interesting fellow too. I had only met him. My only memory of him, apparently I used to go to his house when I was a kid, like little, but I obviously don't remember that.
Yeah.
I was at Smart and Final. I was working the register, and some guy comes up, and he writes a check, and it says, my grandfather's name is Les Raymon, and it said, Les Raymon, and I said, oh, wow. I said, do you know a man named Floyd Raymon? And he's like, yeah, that's my son. I said, well, you're my grandpa. He finished paying his things, didn't talk to me, didn't even try to small talk. He just walked out, never saw him again.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a trip. Yeah. But that's kind of like the way my family has been. The
way I'm reading your body language is it was like, this was par for the course.
It really was, yeah. It to say it hurt my feelings, I'd be totally lying to you because I didn't know him, so it didn't really matter. Yeah. And I'm really big on the, I have a not absent-mindedness, but if you're not directly involved with me in the moment, I really just don't think about you.
Sure.
And so, if I tell my wife, and she gets so mad at me, if it wasn't for my kids, I don't know that I would ever see my family. Yeah. Because, my wife is my family.
Yep.
And so, my mom, my sister, my aunts and uncles and all that stuff, if I see them, cool, we'll hang out, pick up where we left off. But I'm not the type to be like, oh, I should call them. I haven't heard from them for a while. I just don't think that way.
And it's not a reflection of that you don't love them.
Right. No, not at all.
To your point, it's more of just...
out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. I mean, it really is that my brain just does not work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you moved back with your mom?
Yeah.
Up to, I'm assuming, back to Clovis?
Moved back to Clovis, got a small little apartment, and then my dad came back for a hot minute, and then my sister was conceived.
Okay.
And then he was gone for good.
Gotcha.
And so my mom was a single mom with 2 kids, struggled to keep a job down just because she was dealing with the divorce, and she's always been kind of she's always worn her emotions on her sleeves. Yep. She actually, oddly enough, when she was a kid, she had some like mild Tourette's and like physical Tourette's. Mm-hmm. And so they put her in special education.
Oh, okay.
And she's like smart as a whip, but they put her in special education for some reason, and she never really got over that stigma. And so she's always kind of had that defeatist. It's gotten a lot better now that she's, in her 60s. And, I love her to death. And if she hears this, I hope she doesn't think that I'm speaking negatively of her or anything. But that was just the reality where I felt like she never really felt like she was capable, and sibling. I have an aunt that's her younger sister. And she was the one who was like the drama girl and the singer and very flamboyant. Yep. And so she wasn't kind to her either for a long time. And so, that kind of caused, they're better now, but it caused a big rift for a long time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we lived there for a while, and then my mom finally couldn't afford the apartment. So we lived with my grandparents and did that for about, for a few years. And then, it was like this like ping pong thing where we'd move out of my grandparents and then move back in, move out, move back in, kind of back and forth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did that until I moved out at the age of 18. Okay. Because I got tired of, it was 3 adults, 3 different mindsets. I'm expected to listen to my mom's rules. Yeah. Which she had, her rules were really, she would ground me, and I would still just do what I wanted. Right.
It was in name only.
In name only, right. Yeah. Empty threats, right? Yeah. My grandfather, if you didn't listen to him, he would just take his belt out and beat you with it. You know, I only experienced that one time. That's all it took. And then my grandmother was a lot like my mom, but just, like an older version, know. Yeah. And so I just got tired of the back and forth, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm moving out. I can't take this. Yeah. And so 2 weeks or a month after I turned 18, I moved out and got my own place when you can still get an apartment for $350 a month.
Nowhere in California now.
yeah. Nowhere in California now. Yeah. But, and so, and then that's, started living my adult life, you know? Yeah.
So I'm 18.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up.
Sure.
What was like middle school, high school?
I did recreational activities. I had a buddy that we would smoke pot occasionally together and stuff. And I used to always over exaggerate and be like, "Yeah, I was high every day. I was so high. I was so high, like high every day." But that wasn't the case. But it wasn't the case. But I will tell you, I was pretty much an idiot because I used to walk around. So I always kept, rolled joints with me, and I kept them in an Altoids box because I was convinced that the dogs couldn't smell through the Altoids. Yeah. But again, right? On campus, the good chunk of my junior year with joints on me, I never got busted.
That's insane.
It's just crazy, right?
What year was it, or years, I should say?
That would have been 97, 98, and in that year.
That for sure, there was dogs on campus.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
I remember them being on mine, and I was just a few years behind you, so it's like, it's not.
And I was over at good old Clovis High.
Nice.
And, they, I just never got busted with them. Yeah. Made me feel like I was impervious,
Invincible.
Yeah. But, I
do what I want.
That's right. Yeah. And then, and it's crazy too, because growing up, as I said, my wife, I've only been intimate with my wife, no one else. Okay. And in junior high, I had a girlfriend. And it was the typical junior high girlfriend. Oh, I held her hand, and I was just like, I held her hand, you know what I mean? Like, something's moving. I held her hand, and then we fast forward, and I like a girlfriend in like freshman year or whatever. Yeah. My first real girlfriend, where I was just like, this girl is everything to me. She's hot, and she wants me, and blah blah blah. And then she, invites me over to a friend's house to like a pool party. We're swimming and stuff, and she invites me. She's like, "Hey, let's get, we're gonna go watch a movie. Let's get changed." So I was like, "All right, cool." And so I go grab my clothes, and I'm getting ready to go into a bedroom or whatever, and she pulls me into the same bathroom as her. And she just starts changing. Like, this is my first time seeing her in all of her glory. Yeah. And I was incredibly uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And so I turned my back, I got dressed, and then so she ended up sleeping with my best friend.
Oh. That night?
No, not that night, but within like, the natural progression was she thought that I wasn't into her. Yep. And so, and it's funny because, Karen actually had that same problem because I wasn't intimate with her right away. Yeah. She thought the same thing. She thought that I just wasn't into her. Yeah. And I'm like, it's because I'm into you.
Yeah.
It's like I only am dedicating my time to you because I want to pursue.
I care.
Yeah. So then, but during that time, like I said, I was not the worst kid, but I was by no means the good kid. But my talking, right? So senior year, almost didn't graduate high school because I had just had horrible grades. Yeah. I had started.
It was high every day.
Almost. Yeah, not really. But I had started working. I was working at IHOP as just a busser, right? But I had extra cash on me. This classmate of ours, their house burned down. And the teacher was asking for if anybody had any spare money. Mm-hmm. I just got paid, so I had like $300 on me, and I didn't have a bank account, so I just kept it on me. Mm-hmm. So I gave him $100, and she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." They obviously needed it more than me. It's not a big deal, and mind you, I have like a 52% in her class or whatever. Apparently that was
the deciding factor.
Yeah. So what happens is that she pulls me aside and she's like, "Hey, you're not going to graduate. Your grades are bad." She's like, "But here's what I'll do for you. You come to my house and you clean my garage for me, and I'll give you extra credit." Yeah. I know it sounds crazy. She lived way out on Academy.
This is so illegal in the educational system.
Now it is, but back then, who knows, right?
Not, but I'm saying now.
But I go to her house, and it's this big house out there on Academy in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Open up the garage door, and I thought, this is going to be cake. This is like, whatever.
It is gnarly.
The whole garage is covered in cat turds.
Oh,
and there's like, it's just, you open up the garage door, and it's like, the green fog in the movies. It's like that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm earning this D. Like I'm gonna earn this D. So
how many cats did she have?
She had like 25 kids.
Oh gosh, yeah. I had to ask because I'm like, dude, you don't have a garage.
I don't know
full
exactly
like
how many, but there was a ton of them. Yeah, and they were like, you can hear the little me, and the little babies that have just like naturally happen when you have that many cats,
sons getting with moms, and brothers going with sisters.
You know how that goes.
It's all weird.
Yes,
sounds like Hollywood.
Yes, I always tell people that my belief is that Hollywood is just an expensive trailer park. Because everyone's sleeping with everyone. Everyone's got a kid from someone else, right? And then they come up with these bodonk names that make no sense. It can only be from a trailer park.
Trash with money.
That's it.
So Jamie, my wife Jamie, she was telling me that she knows, or she met someone, I think when she was working at, I'll have to have her correct me. I don't know where, but she was sharing that this woman's name was LaDasha.
Oh, I know that one.
Oh,
yeah.
do you?
I know that one, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember how it was spelled?
LA-A.
Have you heard this, Rick?
I'm
like, what?
So my collective of friends, I had 5 friends in high school.
Okay.
My best friend, a guy that he met that later became my best friend as an adult.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple of other friends. Well, one of those couple of other friends was a DJ for a while.
Okay.
And that was the name of a flower girl.
No way.
Yeah, and he's like, I just want to clarify, is it La-A? Is it La-A? And they're like, it's La-Dash. Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah. And he's just like, okay. Like, how do you...
Glad I clarified.
Yeah. But, I don't know if you... People have come up with some crazy names.
Yeah.
I've seen one where it's spelled A-B-C-D-E, and it's pronounced Absidy. No joke.
Sounds like the part of the gym where you work out your abs with Ab City.
Ab City.
Ab City.
Yeah, Ab City.
Yeah.
We're going to crush it at Ab City.
Yeah. It also reminds me, I don't know if you've seen that, the skit or those two black guys, I can't remember their names. Yeah. Where the substitute teacher, and he's like, Aaron. Yeah.
Timothy. Timothy. Jake Quellen.
Jake Quellen.
You hear?
Mr. Oshag Hennessy.
That's it.
That's funny. They're the other one, the names one that's funny is when they have the guys that are the different sports. They're like football players for different college teams. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yes.
I don't remember any of them, but they're just funny as all get out. Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so we, in high school, I graduated just barely, and then started, moved out. And my grandmother, I was 18 when I graduated at 17 because of I was a younger graduate. And then, so I turned 18 and then I actually moved in with a girl who was like a family friend.
Okay.
So it was her and her husband. She's my age. Okay. And she, sad story, she was like, got pregnant in 7th grade and, just kind of had a rough life. Mm. And so I wanted to move out and she needed a roommate. Her and her husband did. And she had a baby too with him, which a different kid. And, it was a perfect fit. So we did that for about a year, and then they ditched me and left me with nothing but a black and white TV in the middle of the living room on one of my night shifts at Smart and Final. Awesome. So, I work my shift. I come home, and I'm like, something seems different. Turn the light on, and there's nothing in everything is gone,
Ghosted.
It was totally. And I didn't know this, but his family was from New Mexico. Oh. So they literally threw everything in this little Toyota Corolla. Must have strapped crap onto the top or whatever and went to New Mexico. Yeah. So did that, and then my shortly thereafter is when I met Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is 18.
This is no. We lived for a year, so 18 and 19.
Okay.
And then my 19 to 20, I had a roommate that was like, his name was Buddy.
Huh.
Good guy, but his name was Buddy. And I think he had an annual showering schedule. It was just kind of bad. Yeah. And good guy. Don't get me wrong. God rest his soul. He's since passed, but he was that was a rough thing. And I actually, before that, I had a girlfriend. All these memories are just flooding back.
Totally.
But the one girl that could have been, before Karen, was this girl, and her and I were pretty serious. Met her at work. We were, but again, same story. Like she wanted to take things further. I said, no, that's not something I'm willing to do.
Yeah. She
wanted a break. And then I found out from a mutual friend that she was hanging out with her ex-boyfriend, who was a part of the friend group. Right. So I knew him.
Yeah.
And he was a cool guy and stuff. And they never I never saw any kind of indication that something was going on. But then I find out that, she's spending time with him at night. I'm just like, okay, this is done. Yeah. And then
so let's dive into that, Bob.
Sure.
What's the, now reflecting, what's like the to what you can put your finger on? Why are you? Because at this point you have accepted Christ. You mentioned that, right? Like at 14.
Yeah.
But like you really weren't living like a truly Christian life. Right. What can you speak to like where your heart was at with like this, hey, I'm not gonna get intimate with you.
Mm-hmm. There's a few things. A lot of it was not wanting to catch a disease or anything like that.
You mentioned that.
Some of that was also the fear of the intimacy part. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of insecurities that come with that.
Yep.
I watched a lot of porn when I was a kid, and I'm like, I don't match up to that, and so that became a part of my identity as far as the insecurities and stuff, and so a lot of that had to play in. I wish I could say that it was because of my faith, but that would not be true. It was a lot of it was just the fact that I was, regardless of how enticing it was, I wasn't ready or willing to take that risk.
Yes, and I wasn't begging for that. I hope you understand
it's
with
okay.
the question.
I'm an open book, bro.
No. It's more like what I love about that response though is it goes back to that even though all the goodness of sexual intimacy has been perverted in your mind up to this point,
right?
There's still this innate like part of you that's like, yes, maybe it's perverted because of exposure to a bunch of porn, right? Like you don't want STDs. Those are all like legit reasons, right? From like a natural world, type approach.
Yeah.
But there, I would argue there is still that like ingrained in us is this conscience of like, no, this is a really important thing.
And reflecting on it, I would agree to that. I would say that if it wasn't for that resistance, my resilience to say no, Karen and I would not be who we are or what we are today. And that's one thing that her and I talked about, because I'm not her first experience.
Sure.
And she has always felt bad about that because she's like, well, what if there's somebody, what you don't know if what we have is the best that you have. And I'm like, I don't need to know because it's all I know. And that's all that matters, But again, that's just the way my mind works. It's like once I decide on something, it's kind of, that's just it,
and it's a grace. Because like that's we've, related in that like element of I have sometimes it's not a gift to what you've mentioned, like it burns us pretty bad, but the converse is true, where the ability to I guess the grace to forget and kind of just like whatever,
and that is definitely true. That is true. And I, going back to the beginning of our conversation, God is involved in everything. And, I've always said that, I didn't truly find Christ until I was an adult. I went through the motions of accepting him, but for selfish reasons. But it doesn't mean that he was not involved in my life.
Totally.
You know, and I think that's what maybe some people forget, is that just because you don't accept God doesn't mean that God doesn't accept you. He says, I will take you where you are. I will not keep you where you are. I will take you where you are, take you as you are. And so I think that's the most important thing to remember, especially for unbelievers, is that, like people talk about all the time, oh, you Christians are a bunch of hypocrites. I'm like, yeah, we are. That's what makes us who we are. The reason why we need Christ is because we admit to the fact that we are broken people. We're sinners. We're saved by grace, the only grace that can be given by God, by Jesus Christ, by his death and resurrection. There's nothing else to it.
And like to that end, it's like it's this constant and more present idea that, the church, right? The church is this hallmark of these people that are all oh, and it's like, no, it's a freaking hospital, dude.
Yeah.
Like if I need this,
right,
in order for me to actually know that I believe in a God, I need this.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, and more so, it's to what you said. It's, I am such a hypocrite that this reminds me and challenges me to be less of a hypocrite every day.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds us, but it doesn't stop us from being one.
Correct.
It's like we have the joy of a conscience that's been that is coexisting with the Holy Spirit. That you do those things that you do when you think no one is watching, and then all of a sudden you're like, crap.
Yeah.
Yep. That reflection that hits, and the screaming that's happening beforehand that you're ignoring, and then all it takes is that little twinge afterwards. And you're like, man, dang it. You know,
I love that. Forget exactly what you said, but it's so easy to forget how all throughout the gospel, Christ is literally in the muck and mire, in the worst possible places in society.
Yeah.
And he's literally like, I love you.
Yeah.
I'm not here to shame you.
Yeah.
I just need you to say you have faith and that you want to be healed.
Well,
and it's literally those two things. It's always, do you believe that I can heal you?
Yeah.
And then it's, do you want to be healed?
Sure. I mean, the New Testament is riddled with Jesus talking to people who were already in their good mind, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is that he spoke only to people who had all their crap together? He only spoke. No, that's not true at all. He spoke to the prostitutes.
Yeah.
He spoke to the tax collectors, the guys who were the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
That a lot of times, I mean, who's one of the greatest apostles? He was a Christian killer.
He was holding the Pharisees' robes that stoned Justin.
Yeah.
Martyr.
So let's be clear for a moment.
He was
please.
present.
Yeah.
When the first martyr was killed and ends up becoming
one of the greatest apostles. And the thing is that all that tells you is that your life experiences don't affect God's ability to heal. If anything, the bigger the wound, the greater the testimony. And that you have such a great opportunity, regardless of where your life is, to do that 180 and maybe not even a 180. It could be
a 30 degree,
right? Whatever it is, right?
Just slight trajectory,
just something, that's going to curve you around, and it's like I look back at all my life experiences, and I don't see my life as being super colorful. Maybe more colorful than others, a lot less colorful than others. But again, it's the testimony of sharing how throughout it all God was there. God prevented me from experiencing things that could have ended my life.
Yeah, changed
me from who I am to somebody completely different.
Yeah.
And that's all his glory.
Yeah.
It's his. We have free will. We have the right to make the choice for or against God. And that's what it boils down to. Yeah. Like when we're given people think free choice is like, you're just free to do whatever you want. No, free choice is the choice to follow God or the choice to reject God.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's essentially what what the free choice is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's was it Exodus 90, Rick, or am I thinking of something else? But this bastardization of that concept of freedom, right? Like how freedom is I get to do whatever I want, and it's like no, freedom always exists within this framework of it's what I ought to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we're truly autonomous in a culture that really believes and loves God, then we wouldn't need a police force.
Right.
right? We wouldn't need all these constructs that social order needs,
right?
Because we live in a fallen world, right? So it's like, yes, you think that freedom is, I get to do whatever I want. The reality is freedom is what you ought to do, meaning you are a responsible person that knows what the difference between right and not right is, right? Which then now we're getting into morality. Okay, well, where do we get morality, right? And then again, so logic and philosophy and all that, right?
Sure.
And because of our,
well,
that's a whole different rabbit hole.
I mean, and my thing is that we live in a gray world, and the Bible teaches black and white.
Yes.
And, though black and white creates gray, it is not designed to be gray.
Yeah.
And so too many people nowadays are forcing that gray. They're taking the black and white and they're forcing it together, and they're creating something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
To suit their own needs, to suit their own powers. And you see this a lot with the way a lot of these new age pastors are interpreting the Bible. Like I've heard guys saying how, like, we're all created in God's image. Remember, we talked about God's image before. We're all created in God's image. That means that we're little gods. That means that there's a part of God inside you.
Now we're Buddhist?
That you can activate. Yeah. Or like like for instance, I don't object to faith healing.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't believe that a man's coat just brushed over you is going to take the cancer out of your body.
Yeah.
Because then that becomes that man doing that for you.
Right.
Yeah. When Karen and I first found out that the girls were going to be here, when we found out she was having the babies, I had just lost my job, right?
Yeah.
And this is
what year was this?
This was 2010. So this is a little bit out of the storyline, but
sure.
it's a really good story.
Yeah.
So I just gotten laid off. I had been given 6 months severance pay.
Okay.
Plus they cashed out all of my sick time and everything else. Okay. So I had a little bit of money to kind of sustain us. Well, then we find out, first it was just, we thought we were having one. Then we found out we're having twins.
Okay.
And then something was wrong with the twins.
Okay.
They were like, when you look at an ultrasound, you see the babies, they're moving around, whatever. One baby was, this big, like the, 2.5 inches big or whatever, and it had all of this amniotic fluid around her. The other one was about an 1/8 to a 1/2 inch smaller and basically looked sucked up, no amniotic fluid.
Wow.
Okay. So immediately we get sent to a specialist. They find out they have this condition called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And what that is that because they're identical twins, they share a placenta.
Okay.
The placenta was pushing all the blood into one baby and neglecting the other. Okay. They had never seen it this severe this early. And so, long story short, they decided to make kind of like it's a surgery that they do, but they usually wait till 20 weeks. We had it done at like 14 weeks. Okay, super early. Maybe 16 weeks.
What does the surgery entail?
They go in through an incision into the uterus, and they use a little laser, and they burn blood vessels to correct the misfiring. Yeah. So it's amazing, right?
That's amazing.
So, so they do this, and the girls. I mean, twin-to-twin transfusion is not common, but it's more common than most people think.
Okay.
And by the time it's caught, it's usually there's 4 stages of severity. We were in the second, going on to the third, and that basically the first stage is that the babies are in trouble. Second stage is one of them is on the verge of death. Second one is, or the third one is dead. The fourth one is both are dead.
Wow.
Like it's pretty like
escalates quickly.
It escalates very quickly.
Yeah.
So, mind you, I'm out of work. I'm trying to collect unemployment. I'm having trouble with that. I'm also trying to find work. And though I'm available and able, nobody is wanting to hire me.
It's 2010.
Yeah, it's 2010.
So it's right after the crash.
Right after the crash, yeah. And so my skill sets would allow me to have these jobs, but for whatever reason, they weren't hiring me. Yeah. I was also letting them know at the time that my wife was in a pregnancy that was complicated, and there could be moments where I would take time off. I'm sure that had something to do with it, right? Yeah. But I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to get the job and then put that into jeopardy, right? Yeah. So, again, this is God's hand, because Karen had the surgery, and then all of a sudden we're at UCSF. So we're in San Francisco at the time. She has the surgery. She's in recovery, and she's like still numb. And this is my wife for you, right? She's like, I'm pretty sure I shit myself. And the doctors are like, that's not possible. You haven't eaten anything you shouldn't have. She's like, then I peed myself. They're like, no, you have a catheter. She's like, well, I feel wet down there. So they go and they look, and sure enough, there's this yellow fluid all around her.
Oh, shoot.
So you know what they do? They grab her catheter and they give it a pull because they thought it was out. It was still wedged in there. So they like yanked on her bladder, basically, right? Well, then they look, and it's all amniotic fluid.
I was just going to say it's amniotic
all fluid. The amniotic fluid came out of her.
Oh, my goodness.
But it came out through the incision. If it had come out through her, through the vaginal area, it would mean that there's this little plug that prevents water from seeking and all that stuff. If that plug was gone, if that was ruptured or gone, then it was gone.
Game over.
Yeah. But because it came through the incision, there was still a chance, right?
Okay.
So she got put on this protein regimen to try to rebuild all this stuff. So the girls are slowly building up the amniotic fluid, and it's level. They're both building at equal intervals, so that's good. With twins, at a certain stage of the pregnancy, there's a separating membrane, and it kind of like hardens a little bit or becomes thicker to prevent the babies from intertwining once they get a little more cramped. As the amniotic fluid was still filling up, this membrane thickens or hardens, and the tension is too great, and it actually tears. So then the babies are now floating together, and they become a condition called, they nickname it Momo twins, which is monochoriotic, monoamniotic, which means they share a placenta and a single space.
Wow.
Extremely dangerous for the girls.
Yep.
Okay? So we're freaking out. We don't know what to do. The doctors basically said, well, as soon as you get to 26 weeks, you're going into the hospital, and you're going to stay there until the babies are born. Medical bed rest, like in the hospital, right? Yeah. So 26 weeks, it was the day after 2 days after 4th of July, I think, she goes into the hospital. I'm not working.
This is UCSF or? This
is here in Fresno, at Fresno Community. Okay, so I'm not working, so I get to spend every single day with her. Okay, she ended up being in the hospital for 72 days. And I was there every day except for 2 days. Okay. And that is God's grace, because it allowed her to keep her sanity, and it allowed us to maintain that bond and to do everything together and to experience everything together. And one proof that God wanted me to be there. Mind you, unemployment, I still have that money that I had pocketed from the severance and everything else, but it was we were on a very strict budget. Yeah. So I go and I check the mail every day. We have dogs at the time, so I leave every day to just water them, play with them for a little bit, whatever. Check the mail. Go and bring the mail to Karen. We're just kind of opening it up, and I see a bill from the water company that we owe $740.
What?
We had a water softener that was broken. It was stuck in the open position, but it was draining into the drain. So it wasn't leaking anywhere. It was just leaking directly into the drain.
You had no way of knowing.
No way of knowing. No way of knowing. So $740, okay? And we're just like, this sucks. Yeah. Like, this is not in our budget whatsoever. I start making calls, start doing that. 3 or 4 days later, I go and check the mail, and I see something from our mortgage company. I'm just like,
here we go,
right? What's going on? So I take it, and I'm like, hey, we got more news. We got something from the mortgage company. I don't know what it is. And so she opens it up, and it's a check for $736. $736. So it paid our water bill. And to me, that was God saying, relax.
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're good.
So the girls are born. The reason why she was on the medical bed rest is because there was a fear of them becoming entangled, right?
Yep.
So they were worried about heart deceleration. So she was on monitors and all that. The whole time she was there was not a single heart deceleration. Okay. They go to the doctor. The doctor, it's time for to have the babies born and stuff. And we go in there, and she has to have a C-section. Can't be natural. And the doctor, mind you, the doctor that was the resident that was like going through, he's like, there's something wrong here. This cannot be right. For you to be in here and to not have a single heart deceleration, we're missing something. He's like, I see a mass there, but that's got to be a shadow. It's got to be something. Something can't be right because you should have complications by now.
Yeah.
So
how many weeks are you guys?
We made it all the way to 36 weeks. Okay. So she made it, a very full term basically for twins.
Yeah.
So we get into the operating room, and the doctor who delivered the babies was not the same doctor who did the residency, and she was just like, Dad, you have to see this. And I, they have a curtain up. You can't see anything. I look over. She's holding a mass of meat that was the girls' umbilical cords. They came out so close together that when they cut the first cord, it literally like unraveled from the second. They were belly to belly.
No way.
They could not distinguish which cord went to where it met on the placenta.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just
another proof
that, we had some of the best doctors. We had some of the best technologies. Yeah. And it only took the only physician that could get it done and get it done right was the ultimate physician. Yeah. That, God was there the whole step of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the middle name of our daughter who was at the highest risk, her middle name is Grace.
Okay.
And Karen chose that because it was just by the grace of God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah. And and it's great. God has we've just had so many opportunities like that where God has just thrown himself at us to say, stop.
Yeah.
And the only reasoning I have is because we're so quick to be like, hey, God, we're buying this car. I hope you like it. You know what I mean? It's like,
I'm going to control this.
Yeah.
I know better. I need an answer now.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how we do it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I have to hold on just a second, guys. I apologize.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
We're hitting like an hour. Let's throw another log and then we can jump back in.
Okay, cool.
Hello, friends. I want to tell you a little bit about our First Fruits movement. What we do first in everything matters. It sets the trajectory of whatever action we take. In Leviticus, God tells Moses to share with the Israelites that they must bring forth the first fruits of their livestock, of their produce, and of their drink. The fulfillment of this is found in Jesus himself. He is the firstborn of the Father. He is the first man to conquer death. He is the first to ascend into heaven. Before Jesus' ministry, he would run to Mary for guidance and counsel. So why would I not do the same? What can you do to participate? Commit to praying the rosary daily, invite other men and women to join you, and share the movement with your friends on social media and other communication platforms. What can you do to support us here at Circa Ignem and First Fruits? First, pray for us and our mission daily, and second, buy our hats and future merch at circaignem.com. That's CIRCAIGNEM.com. Thank you.
And we're back. All right. Bob?
Yeah.
Give us one more solid story.
Oh, man.
Not that any of yours haven't been solid. But.
Yeah, yeah. The truth comes out, man. The truth comes out. Yeah. There's just a lot of them. Meeting Karen was probably one of the craziest things in my life. My storyline's kind of jumping all over the place, but that's just the way my brain works.
For sure.
But when Karen and I first met, she was not in the place that she needed to be, and ultimately, it's not where she really wanted to be. It's just where she ended up. Mm-hmm. She was struggling with a lot of issues. And so when her and I first met, I was 20, she was 20, right? We're the same age. And I was actually at my cousin's, my next door neighbor's, my cousin's house, celebrating the youngest is a girl. She's like 3.5 years younger than me, celebrating her 18th birthday and her graduation. It was just like a combo party. Yeah. She worked at In-N-Out with Karen. Okay. And so I had been there I helped set up, and even though I was only 18, only 20, I was, partaking in some beverages of choice, getting a little tipsy. Yeah. And so I was feeling good, just hanging out, living my best life with my cousins, and we were just like, because it was all of my younger cousins' friends, and so we're just, eyes were just rolling, you know what I mean? We had like a scale system down where it was, and mind you, I had never slept with a girl, but it didn't change the fact that the desires were there, and so we were just constantly like, dude, I would I would go for that in a heartbeat, whatever. Yeah. So, the end of the night, I end up, I'm sitting on the back of this truck, and I'm with my cousin who's incredibly inebriated. Like, he is just like, when he blinks, it's like the Toy Story toys, where it's like one eye at a time kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about? And so Karen is sitting there, and I don't know who she is, but he's like, girl, you fine, doing that stuff. And he's like, those lips look delicious, and with
the eyes doing the offset close.
No, totally. Yeah. And so, and I've sobered up by this point, and so I'm like, I'm so sorry, my cousin's drunk, whatever. And so we just started small talking, whatever. And before you know it, it's like 2.5 hours had gone by. And so this is already like 12:30 at night. Okay. And so, we're talking, we're just like, we find out we were born a day apart, and like, that we have a lot of similar interests. Yeah. And she's just like, well, it's like 3:00 in the morning, and I have to be at work at 8 tomorrow, I gotta go. And I was like, oh, well, it was really,
8? Yeah. Oh,
she's gosh. Like, it was, and I was like, well, it was really nice talking with you. I hope that we can talk again sometime. Or no, I didn't even say that. It's like, it was really nice meeting you. Yeah. So my best friends have all, the 5 of them. My nickname was Oblivious Bob because I never considered myself to be a good-looking guy, but I was always been friendly, and I'm talkative, and so I would talk to anybody and everybody. Yeah. I couldn't tell if a girl was flirting with me or not. That's just, it wasn't because I wasn't really looking for it, I guess. I don't know. But they were just, they were reciprocating my energy, right? Mm-hmm. And all of my buddies were like, dude, she's so hitting on you, man. I'm like, no, they're just being friendly. They're just, I'm being nice, they're being nice. That's all it is, right? Yeah. So that's how my interactions with the opposite sex had really been.
Always.
Yeah. And then only the ones who were overt, like obvious, pursued me first, basically, were the ones that I was like, oh, you do like me, cool, you know? Yeah. So
it needs to be real obvious.
It has to be super obvious. The reason I say that is because Karen was like, okay, well, it's time for me to go and whatever. And then so she starts walking to her car. And I don't walk her to her car. I'm like, bye. See you later.
It's 2 a.m.
Yeah, right. And one of the other neighbors, we were talking. They're like, dude, she's into you. And I'm like, no. If she was into me, she would have given me her number or something. You know. And they're like, dude, just go. And then he's like, hey, Karen, Bob really likes you. And she's like, if he liked me that much, he'd come and get my phone number. And I was just like,
well played.
Okay. So walk of shame, kind of walk over, and I'm all sheepishly like, hey, can I get your phone number? And so we exchanged phone numbers, and then that was it. and I didn't call her for a few days, right? Well, Karen's story,
again, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'll get to that in a minute, right, about all of that. But Karen's story is different than mine, right? So mine, I'm just living my best life, scoping out the chicks and getting, blitzed with my cousin, and then bailing him out of a potential disaster. Right? Karen shows up. She's actually kind of like halfway dating my female cousin, which I didn't know, right? Yeah. I didn't know that was... Okay. I had actually heard about my cousin dating this girl, and I was like, really? I didn't know that about you. Yeah. Didn't know it was Karen.
Gotcha.
Karen shows up. She doesn't really want to be there. Yeah. She's just there because my cousin was like, please, whatever. And she's like, fine, I'll say that I was there. I'll go so I can say I was there. Yeah. So she shows up. 5 minutes goes by, she sees me, and she's like, oh, I might stick around. So she's sticking around. She's talking to people that she knows or whatever.
But not you.
But not me. Yeah. Right. Because I'm off. I'm like, this is my turf. So I'm just everywhere. Right. Yeah. And so she says that, so she's sitting down and she's like drinking water or something like this at a table. And they have a carport, and it was the makeshift dance floor. And so she says that, like, all of a sudden the music ends and the dance floor of all 9 people splits, and here I come walking, right? And I'm smiling big, and I'm looking right at her, and she's getting all excited, getting herself whatever, and she's like, he's making eye contact with me. Yeah. He's got the biggest smile, and it is gorgeous. She's like, whatever. And then I walk past her because my tia is sitting behind her, directly behind her. And so I'm talking with her.
So excited to see your tia.
Yeah. And so completely oblivious to this girl who is like, totally into me. Yeah. And then, so she's like, F it, I'm out of here. Yeah. Right. And then, but she stuck around. And then, because my cousin was like, her girlfriend, I guess, at the time or whatever, they were just like, talking or whatever. And then we end up in the back of that truck.
Okay.
And that's when we start talking. And then that's when, all the stuff happens. Right. So I get her number. I don't call her. I don't know how to use phone number, apparently, So 2-3 days goes by.
Well played, Bob. Even though it was unintentional.
Story of my life. So I finally call her, right? And she's like, who is this? And I'm like, hey, it's Bob. We met over at my cousin's house for her birthday party and all that stuff. She's like, oh, you know who I am? How Karen is, right? So we kind of talk or whatever, and we agree to go on a date. Okay. And I'm still working at Smart and Final. I'm doing the graveyard shift. Well, she shows up, and she gets out of the car, and she shows up at the end of so I would start my shift an hour before the store closed. Mm-hmm. And I told her that. And so it was right about closing time. I'm gathering carts or something like that. She gets out of the car and she's like, so do I look like you remember? Right. And I'm just like, yeah. Right. I'm really confused. I'm just like, yes.
What's going on?
Because her assumption was that I didn't bother calling her because I had my beer goggles on. And then once I remembered, once I woke up or whatever, because remember, she had a lot of insecurities about things. So I was like, yeah, totally. We're still on to hang out or whatever, right? And so we go on a date, and then I don't talk to her again for a couple of days. And so, she's still out doing her thing. So she's living her best life. And so she's out, still hooking up with people and all this stuff, which I found out later on. And I was just like, that broke my heart, because I'm just like, that's not my mindset. I don't think like that. And so that was actually a big kind of a contention in our, I don't know if that's the right word, in our relationship, where I was just like, I don't know if you were the right fit for me, because this was going on. So anyway,
That is the right word, by the way.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're good.
So, so we go on a couple of dates. Actually, no, I take it back. Our very first date was at Binnigan's. Do you guys remember Binnigan's?
Yeah.
So we go to Binnigan's, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'm getting, she grabbed like the Monte Cristo, which is like, this like their famous sandwich or whatever. And we're going and we're having a great conversation. We're talking and stuff. I like doing weird things, and so I like doing, folding paper like origami and stuff, right?
Nice.
So I learned how to fold dollar bills into little hearts, right?
Nice.
So, you say nice now. So we're talking.
Son.
No, just you wait. So we're talking. I'm folding this paper up and all that. The dollar bill. I think it was a $5 or something. And so the bill comes, and we're talking, and I go to pay, and I pay with my card, and I leave the heart for the waitress.
Oh, come on, bro.
Here's the thing. Again, oblivious, right? I was not putting two and two together that would mean something, right? So she's just like, really? Right? And I was like, what? I just thought it was fun. I just learned how to do it. It's cool. I thought she would think it was cool. So we start walking out.
Bob, dude.
I know. Trust me. If you ask Karen, this is the condition of our marriage. She's constantly like...
Constant state of, really?
It's a good thing I love you because you are an idiot, right? So we start walking out, and I just so happen to leave my card in the restaurant.
Nice.
Karen is convinced that the girl held on to it and was waiting.
Was trying to...
So she comes running out, and she's like, you forgot your card. And she hands me the card. And that was... Remember you were talking about the dude at the fist bump? Yeah. That was Karen's... Do you want to go back in there with her? It's like, no. Like, and this whole time I'm like...
still just like, what?
I'm like, how am I in trouble? All I was doing is, I just made this thing for this person. It doesn't mean anything, And she's like, it means everything. Oh, man. It means everything.
Yeah, in Karen's mind, it was
yes,
like...
Yes, it was. Right. So that's kind of how our relationship always was, where I'm just an idiot. Okay. So remember that girl I was telling you about where we met at work, and all of that time I thought she was the one, and then she ended up hanging out with her ex-boyfriend. We had mutual friends, and this one particular mutual friend who was also a coworker was a very good saxophone player.
Nice.
In fact, he did a lot of like solo shows at like Livingston's and Tower District, all that stuff, right?
Yep.
And there was a small little club next to Livingston's that he was showcased at.
Okay.
And so he invited me to come.
Nice.
And he's like, just so you know, Cynthia will be there.
Okay.
Cynthia was the ex-girlfriend.
Nice.
I was like, that's cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
So we, I go and I'm enjoying, and of course Cynthia shows her face, and she's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Go away.
So, I'm still a smoker at the time, so I go out and have a smoke, and she comes out with me, and we're talking, and it's just small talk, and she's like, I didn't realize how much I was going to miss you. I'm like, sucks to be you, like that kind of thing. And much nicer, though. I wasn't that rude, but it was basically like I was letting her know loud and clear that I'm done.
Yeah.
And whatever. I made the mistake of saying that I was going to go see my girlfriend at her work, which was In and Out over on Ashland.
Yeah.
So it's all done. Everyone parts ways. I show up at In and Out, stand in line. Guess who shows up behind me?
Oh, gosh.
The ex-girlfriend.
Freaking Cynthia.
You say freaking Cynthia now, but the story continues.
Yo, what up, Cynthia?
So I'm in line with her. We're there in line. Karen is she's somewhere in the stand. I'm not exactly sure where, but she makes eye contact with me, and she's like, hey, how's it going? We've only been dating for a few months or whatever, and I was like, hey, how's it going? This is my ex-girlfriend, Cynthia, here.
Oh, gosh.
And she's like, are you fucking serious right now? Right? She's like, you invited her right? And this is what she tells me after, and this is her story too. She's like, this idiot invites his ex-girlfriend to my work, my turf, right? It gets better though, because she didn't just come by herself. All of the friends were there. So like my buddy who did the show and all that stuff, they're there, and so they're in like the back corner. Where the windows meet, like in that corner, right? Yeah. And so it's like, they're like the stationary chairs and the stationary tables. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting down, I'm sitting next to the guy who did the show, and I'm talking with him. The only available spot is right in front of me for the ex-girlfriend to sit.
Gosh, darn it.
She sits right there. Yeah. Karen sees it. Yeah. She's just like, I'm freaking done. Yeah. I'm so done. So I see that she walks out, so I go walk out with her, and we exchange a little bit. She's not having any of it. She's just done. Yeah. So I'm like, gosh, man, what is going on? Okay. So this is like 11 o'clock at night, and I know that she closes. She's living with her sister at a time in an apartment. So I drive to her house, to her apartment, and I wait right by her door. And I'm waiting for her.
Right on, creeper.
Okay? Seriously. Well, because she wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't talk to me, right? Yeah. So I'm like, if I can at least go to her, meet her, we can hash it out, we can work on this, because this girl means a lot to me, right? She gets off of work. She drives to my apartment. No. I'm not there. Her first thought is, I'm off with Cynthia. So she decides she had been going to the Red Wave with her sister, and she had met these two guys, and so this one guy was really into her, I guess. So she calls up that guy and is like, "Hey, my boyfriend's out messing around. What are you doing right now?"
Oh, jeez.
And so while I'm texting her like, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I'm so sorry what happened." She's just like, "That," and so dude starts putting the hits on her hard, right? And and I trust her that the story is true. It was a long time for me to trust her because of previous experiences and all that stuff, right? But she says that the guy tried to hit on her. He kissed her, but she did not return the kiss, right? And to this day, every time I hear the guy's name, it's like the name that shall not be named in Harry Potter, right? It's like my blood boils. I have seen him around town, and it's everything for me not to just run him over. You know what I mean? Anyways, so she ends up, finally getting home. Like I go home. I'm sending her text messages. Text messages are new at this time. Yeah. I'm sending her text messages one number at a time. I'm like 333-1115. And I'm telling her like, hey,
14-9.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, it's like it's like 4:00 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah, I'm literally been waiting for you.
I'm in my car waiting for you. I can't wait anymore. I guess I'll just see you when I see you. I'm sorry, or whatever, Yeah. And so eventually she calls me back and she's like, "Where the hell were you?" And I'm like, "I was in front of your apartment the whole time." And she's like, "No, you weren't." I was like, "How would you know? You never went home." And she's just like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, got me.
So I mean, obviously we worked things out, and it was a rough go. And in fact, it was quite a serious issue. Like the trust factor on my part was just
super low.
It was crazy though, because I felt justified for having distrust in her. She felt justified in having distrust in me for the same thing, but two completely different situations, And it was crazy. Yeah. It was just absolutely nuts. And to this day, like my name is the guy's name. Her name is the ex-girlfriend.
Cynthia.
Yeah. And every time, like, you just say her name, don't you ever do it. But you bring up that name, and she's just like, Bob is an idiot. He brought her to my work, like.
She sat across from him.
Yep. Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah. It's absolutely nuts, man. It's nuts. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, you guys worked through it.
Yeah, well, that's the important thing, man. That's what love is.
To your point,
yeah.
At any point, that could have just done.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. But I've been every relationship that I had, except for like, when I was in junior high or whatever.
Yeah.
My junior year girl that cheated on me with my best friend. Mm-hmm. Well, technically it wasn't cheating because we had split up, but it was still, it's like the bro code type thing, that kind of whatever.
On break.
Yeah. Right. But I had always, my big thing is that I'm investing my time in you because I see a future with you. Mm-hmm. Even in my junior year in high school, that was my philosophy. Yeah. Like, so
you matter.
You matter, right? Yeah. Right. Like you are important to me.
Yeah.
And so that's how it is with every relationship. Even when it was with Cynthia, she was the most important thing to me, and I wanted to take it to the fullest of its potential, and I did. It just wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't marriage or anything like that. With Karen, it was. Yeah. And so love is a funny thing. It's going to come and it's going to go. If somebody says love at first sight, don't trust that. Yeah. Because it's lust at first sight. Yeah. Love is not something that just happens, right? Yeah. It's something that requires work and effort, and you fall in and out of love with your spouse constantly. Yeah. And if you don't have those fundamental truths about where you are in your marriage, then the first time you start to slip down that hill, you have nothing to hold on to. You're falling down into the ravine, and it's done. Yeah. And she's wanted to run out on me a few times. I remember when the girls were when she was pregnant with the girls, she's like, "I feel like we're just running away to Mexico." I'm like, what are you going to do in Mexico? She's like, I just don't know if you're just going to stick around once the babies are born. I'm like, so your option is to just run away now? Like, what? You know what I mean?
You don't even speak Spanish, Karen.
Your name is Karen. It's not even Karim. Like, it's
That's awesome. Does she have a middle name?
Anne.
Yeah, that's like that.
Yeah,
Anna.
Yeah, Anna. Yeah, but when we first got married, got engaged, I wanted honeymoon babies.
Yeah,
I didn't come from a big family, but there's a lot of families around me, and family was so, especially in Mexican culture, family is important. It's fruitful to have lots of kids, and I wanted a lot of kids. I just wanted kids.
Yeah.
She did not want to have. She couldn't even touch her niece, her baby niece. Like it freaked her out too much.
Interesting.
And so and I knew this about her, but I still proposed to her, and I still wanted to marry her, but she was still really just dug into this no kids thing. Yeah. And so I told her, I was like, marriage is an important part of my life, but so is kids. Like kids are a very important part of my life, and I want to have children. And if you can't promise me that we can have children, that you want to have children, then I can't marry you. And she was really upset with it. And I think she went and talked to her mom or her dad or something like that and decided, okay, with the understanding that we will wait until I'm ready. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, that works. And then it took 7 years, but we finally had, kids. And I told her, I was like, see what happens when you wait too long? God bless you with 2 at a time. That's what happens, That is just what happens. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just great, man. God is good. And if you don't think that he's good, it's because you're not looking at the right God.
Yeah.
People will say all of these things about, like Jesus Christ is a way to heaven, but not the way to heaven. And I say, show me any other man who claims to be God, who died and then was resurrected and was lifted up into heaven. Yeah. Where? Yeah. There's no one else that has that claim.
That's also historically recorded.
Right.
It's not like we're just pointing to the Bible. It's like, no. There's like Roman, like historical documents that talk at multiple angles about this event occurring. It's not just biblical, like, circular argument. It's like, no, there's plenty of outsourcing that you can point to.
But again, that's one of those inconvenient truths that people just blow over.
Gloss
it's
over.
like those people who claim that Jesus wasn't even real, and that it's just a figment. And I'm like, you are quick to make that claim, but you also support the Muslims, and the Muslims believed in Jesus Christ as being a prophet, a holy prophet, an unscathed prophet, but not God. Yeah, that's the only difference, right? Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously, it's seems like a small detail, but it's everything, right? I mean, it's the biggest detail of them all. But every major religion has some sort of biblical reference in it. Like, I want to say, like, even like the Chinese character for flood. If you look at it, it looks like Noah's Ark. It's like, really, yeah. I think that's what it is. Yeah. So don't quote me officially on that, but that was that's my belief. Is I feel that's, if you look at it, it looks like a small little boat, that looks like the ark.
Interesting.
So it's just it's not necessarily Christ, but it's just the idea that the Bible is God will make himself known to all his people. Yeah.
The thing I always fall back on along the lines of what you're talking about is that often those that are trying to diminish or justify a position that is in, they might couch it as, I'm not opposed to Christ, right? I just, like, to your point, he's a way, not necessarily the way, in my opinion, is also a reflection. And this isn't meant to sound judgmental in terms of that we're casting judgment.
Sure.
What it does point to me, when I hear that, is that we're justifying certain ways that we want to live.
Yeah.
By not being, by knowing that we don't have to be accountable. Does that
absolutely no? Yeah, absolutely.
And, like it's classic, like Henry VIII, right? he wants to have as many wives as he wants, and so he says, "Oh, okay, cool, peace out.
Yeah,
I'm going to start my own church."
Yeah,
because the church was going, "No, dude, you can't do that. Like, you can't just keep like fornicating,
right?
And cutting your wives' heads off, and trying to find one that will provide you an heir. Like, that's not how this works,
right?
Yeah,
no, that's and to me, I think that is so accurate to the way things are today. I mean, if you look at all the different sects in that's umbrellaed under Christianity, a lot of them that make the claims of Christianity blatantly are not.
Yeah.
But they've come up with doctrine that suits their own particular desires and needs that allows them to kind of be Christian, but we're also including this.
Yeah.
It's like we do believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but Satan was also his brother. And if you work really, really hard and you can prove yourself as a worthy person by the works you do, you can become your own God. And, it's like all these little things where but going back to the thing about the, like, judgment and stuff, again, this is my kind of standalone statement, is that I don't think the Bible tells us not to judge.
No. So that's why I was clarifying.
Okay.
Is it's often because the culture says, only God can judge me.
Right. No,
like,
only God can condemn.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then it's also, they take that, right? It's been taken and run with, you can't judge me. And it's like, well, you know what? I don't know your heart.
Yeah.
But I know the fact that you're fornicating means I can tell you right now that's not okay.
Right.
Well, and I can make a judgment on that.
Yeah.
Now I can't tell you you're going to hell. Only God can condemn you in that, regard. Yeah. But I can tell you right now, the sins that you're committing right now are absolutely an abomination to God.
Yeah.
So, like, it's either this or that. There's no in between.
There are literally books in the Bible called Judges, and what do? They're judging people for the atrocities that they've done against God.
I think
each other.
This is the beautiful thing about this too is that the Christian church as a whole, right? Catholicism is I will raise my hand and say it totally exists in Catholicism. I'm sure you will raise your hand to this as well. We've gotten so lax in terms of actually holding each other accountable.
Oh, yes.
On this level.
Yes.
Meaning going, no, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because I love you.
Right.
Not because I'm trying to ram something down your throat or make you feel shame. That's not what this is about. What this is about is metanoia and change. Yeah. Because if I don't say it, then who is?
Well, but we are in a society of feelings, right? And if I'm hurting your feelings, then I'm hurting you.
Right.
It's just like with all the political stuff now, man. You've got people are so shallow that they don't have anything else to claim as themselves other than their political affiliations, their feelings.
It's become the new religion.
It really has. Yeah. And so what happens is that if you go out and this goes for, Trump supporters, Biden supporters, Green Party, Purple Party, whatever it is. Yeah. If you make a claim against that idea, because that's all it is. Yeah. The different parties, they're just ideas.
Yeah.
If you go against that idea, because these people have put so much of their time, effort, and their belief system into that idea,
it's their identity.
Yeah, and then that's why you get all of these. You can't have a conversation. Conversations they're not called agreeables. No. You know what I mean? Like we're conversing, and when you converse, you're going to have a differing idea, and you hash it out. You debate it a little bit, but in a very respectful way with the. To understand.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Because exactly what you said, it's everyone's identity is is skin deep.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reminded of like early the founding fathers, and even before that, right? When these guys would go toe to toe for, in writing, on the floor, all that. But guess what? They're going out and grabbing a beer.
Of course.
Because there's a complete separation in thought versus who the person is.
Right.
Right? Like, yes, how you explained your French-Canadian, coworker.
Yeah.
And you guys can go at it, but there's a decorum to it. There's a respect. There's a level of like, yeah, we absolutely don't see eye to eye, but I'll grab lunch with you.
Of course.
It's like, that doesn't change the fact that like you're just as much a human being that's been created by God,
right,
that I'm going to respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I used to tease them. I'd say, you know what? Just because I think a certain way and you think the wrong way, and
that's very Rush Limbaugh.
It is, but and he had the humor to get it. But that, again, it's a problem when those people that you say things like that to can't laugh.
No, and that's my issue is at least he could laugh.
Yeah.
Because he knows that you're like just playing.
We're bantering.
It's just it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing to what you guys said like a few minutes ago about like we can't tell.
No, you can't.
Moments past.
No, it's not the moments past. Is it? It doesn't sound like you could actually do. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make funny. I mean I do because I just want me.
No, I was trying to find my words.
That's okay.
No, when you said that you can we can't tell someone they're going to hell because we're judging them.
Yeah.
Which true, but I also think that it's one of the most charitable things that we can do to tell somebody you're living like you want to go to hell.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But that takes courage that is lost.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That it takes real courage that is lost. And I wish I could say that I would boldly do that.
I'm in the same boat.
I don't think I could.
Yeah.
Because imagine if it's some bozo down the street, okay, I can probably, mouth off to them because they don't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
But what if it's like your maybe it's your mother or your father?
Yeah.
That it's the most important thing that you can do for them, but it could sever that relationship forever.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because then you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place, because it's like, okay, do I not say anything to them and I let them continue down that path?
Yeah.
With the risk of them never finding Christ and then spending eternity in hell? Do I tell them and have them realize the errors in their ways and redeem themselves? Do I tell them and have them not hear my words and, disown me? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you have all of these things, and it's a hard thing to really come to terms with. But, what does Christ say about all that? He says, take up your cross and follow me. Yeah. Right? He does not say, take up your cross and follow your brother. Mm-hmm. Just follow me. And he said that, you are a child of God, first and foremost. Once you accept Christ, you are a child of God, first and foremost. Your responsibility is to God. Mm-hmm. And what does God tell us to do? I mean, the Gospels. What does gospel mean? Repent and believe. That's the first word that he's saying. It's to go, and after that, though, it's to go out. It's to share the good news. Gospel means good news, right? Yeah. It's to go out and to share the good news. The problem is that people who are in sin, deep in sin, don't recognize that it's good news. Yeah. Right? It's like the Nazis are invading Poland and all these other places, and then all of a sudden the Nazis are completely eradicated, right? Mm-hmm. For the whole world, that's the best news you can hear. But if you are a Nazi, it's not good news. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know it's a horrible analogy, but it's the idea that,
that is reality.
People in sin are like those Nazis in the sense that they're going about their business convinced that they're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. Convinced that they are they're not doing anything wrong because they have been told that they're not doing anything wrong. Yeah. So then it's our responsibility to tell them. Yeah.
I think to a lot of what we've also a number of, and what you started out with was perfect. I know that I don't necessarily have the courage, most, if not always, to actually speak that boldly. I think what I found in a specific situation recently, last month, maybe end of December, was this was a conversation I really wanted to avoid for a couple weeks, because it was hard. It was going to be me having to challenge someone in faith. And it was more because it started out as, I just need to say it, like what we're saying, whereas I just need to just drop this on the table and then go from there. And more through conviction and prayer, all of a sudden it was Eli, ask questions, try to understand what's going on in the context of their life. Gotcha. And guess what? That was received so much better than if I had just been like fire and brimstone. Sure. Because guess what? A real close friend, someone that I knew this could totally change the relationship and friendship that we have. I'm convinced that it made it way deeper because it was approached in compassion and love, but with truth. Yeah. Right. Where it was, help me understand what's going on. And then it was, this isn't right. So what do you need from me to help you?
Instead of, this is what you're doing wrong, you need to fix it, you're an idiot, yes. Blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah. And it's going to be different for each person, right? Of course, we can't approach it as a cookie cutter, Sure. But it was a testimony of applying the concept of Socratic method. Yeah. Of going, you know what? I don't know everything there is. I'm not God. So I don't know the context. And once you get the full context of what's going on in the background of their life, all of a sudden you're like, okay, there's the human element of messiness in this. That, to your point about black and white in terms of what God has always proclaimed to us, all of his covenants are black and white. But as soon as you throw the human element, there's gray in there. Yeah. And so we have to be able to approach and go, okay, let's parse out the black and the white, or let's bring in the black and the white into this gray so that we can parse out what's been allowed, what's been decided, and what really has been maybe not necessarily imposed, what's been allowed to happen in your life. Sure. right?
Yeah.
But again, just a beautiful conversation. If it had happened a week earlier, it probably would not have gone well at all.
Well, and you're talking about how not everything is cookie cutter with those situations.
Yeah.
However, there's always the common thread of God.
Yes.
That's the thing is that, God, when I was a deacon at my church, I did not have the answers to any questions really, but I always made it a point. I would always pray just about clarity, about understanding, about how to deal with this situation, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And there was one particular situation where this woman was just irate with the pastor. She felt like he was a racist and felt like he was a this and a that. And I was her assigned deacon, so she came to me. Yeah. And I'm new at it. I'm telling you, maybe a year into it, and we're a small church, so I didn't really encounter a whole lot.
Sure.
But I prayed, I had my Bible, and it was like the Holy Spirit was just talking through me.
Yeah.
I'm not a scripture guy. I don't remember scripture. I know the fundamentals, but I don't, my memory doesn't allow for that kind of thing. I was reciting scripture.
Nice.
And it was like, to me, that was the closest to the book of Acts, speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it was like, it was by God's inspiration that I was able to communicate to this girl, to this woman. Now, I didn't answer all her questions, but I do know that there was a sense of restoration through her, and it's all attributed to God. Yeah. Like, it was not me at all, and I think that the same thing could be said with you and your friend, where God, you had that divine inspiration to take a step back, to question your place in that conversation. Yep. You were a medium for that conversation between him and God.
Right.
Yeah. And I just, again, it just points a finger to how amazing he is.
Oh. And when, like, to what we started out with, when we act, right? Like, there has to be that step out, right?
Yeah.
Because I could have easily just been like, I'm not going to do it.
Right. It makes me too uncomfortable. Yeah. I can't do it.
And yet it's like, this has to be done. Right.
And how many missed opportunities in our lives from us just getting in our own way.
Yep.
We're trying to step on our own feet to justify why we can't walk.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, God calls us to walk, to follow him, follow in his steps.
Yep.
And it'll be, it's not going to be easy. Like, God does, they say it's the path less taken, right?
Mark, there will be trouble,
guaranteed,
and you will have peace.
Yeah,
it's that paradoxical. Like, your life is going to be it's going to be a lot of suffering, but you're going to be at peace.
You'll be at peace.
Yeah,
and how many experiences in life have you had where you've dealt with something so incredibly uncomfortable, but have felt peace about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That, again, that's God's work.
Totally. Yeah.
So.
Not human ordained. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Closing thoughts. We're at 3:18 right now.
Oh, geez, nice.
Well, not AM.
No,
3 hours.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I think the biggest thing is that there's a stigma on the term Christian.
Yeah.
Especially in today's age.
Yep.
You hear a lot of things about a Christian nationalist and what that means, or just being a Christian and what that means.
For the love.
It's horrible, right? Yeah. But being a Christian is not a religion. It's a relationship. And whether you're Catholic, whether you're Christian, like a Baptist, like I am, whether you are, any other, fundamental, Jesus Christ died for our sins, rose again, and is our living sacrifice, redeemer of all. Mm-hmm. If you believe that and you have that relationship with him, that's the most important thing. It's important for you to surround yourself with like-minded Christians not for the sake of tooting your own horn,
Rah, rah, rah.
but but the accountability. The accountability. And I think that if we're, our tagline with my podcast is, we're 3 sinners saved by grace. And that's it. There is nothing about us that stands out except for the fact that Christ is there. Nothing else is important to us. We have our differences of opinion. We have our quirks. We have the things that make us special. But the one thing that stands out and stands alone is the fact that Jesus Christ is the most important thing. And if anybody can take anything from the words of tonight, it's just that if you look for him, you will find him. He says that he is to be, those who seek him will find him. It talks about how, revelation will come when everyone has had an opportunity to seek the forgiveness and the redemption of Jesus, and the claims are made. Well, what about those? The Aborigines deep in the heart of Australia, wherever it might be, right? Or the tribes in like South America. How are they going to know the true God? Well, do you know that pretty much everyone has some sort of belief system? We were designed to worship, right?
Yeah.
We're designed to worship. Christ will let him be known. They may not recognize that it is Jesus Christ. They may not say Jesus Christ, right? But there is going to be a realization of an almighty God who can redeem the broken, who can heal the unhealable wound of our souls. And that's something that we have to remember. And if God is capable of doing that, why are we making it so hard on ourselves? We just have to go and plant the seed, and Christ does the rest. And I don't know. It's for me. It's just I sound like a broken record, I guess. But it's like he is the most important thing. And as a Christian, I can tell you that I fail at that realization often. You guys were talking about this thing that you're doing with the
Exodus 90.
Exodus 90. The idea of doing that, it scares me to a certain extent, right? I mean, the idea of giving up these things that have made my life so comfortable and has made me so dependent upon, like if I couldn't see myself going 3, 4, 5 days a week without my cell phone. It's my lifeline.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's not my lifeline. But I see it as that because I've become so dependent upon it, But if once we recognize that our true lifeline is Christ, then everything else is just an added bonus, right? And the nice thing about bonuses is that typically, like, those of us who get financial bonuses, right? You don't always know how much it is. You don't always know when it's coming, and it's great when it's there. Yeah. But if you expect it, it's no longer a bonus.
Right.
It's just a part of your income.
Yeah.
And so we need to remember that all of those other things are just little bonuses that we are gifted with, but we should not depend upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my 2 cents. I told you I can talk, man.
No, it's good.
That was good, man. That was only 5 minutes.
Oh, hey. Yeah. So
No, not that we're counting.
Hey, so Rick, when Karen says, Bob just won't shut up, now you know.
She's never said that.
Never.
No. Well, I just, I know you gave your closing thoughts, but
oh boy, here we go.
No, I just want to thank you for coming on, and for the listener, I don't know how, but if you haven't figured it out yet, Bob is not a Catholic, and we are, and Bob is the first non-Catholic we've had on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And it's just been cool because we can definitely always focus on the differences, but hopefully tonight, what you heard here was what we have in common and what what we share together. And it's very evident in tonight's conversation that the common theme of the three of us here present tonight is that we all believe in the living God.
Amen.
And in Jesus Christ. And I just think that more conversations like these are needed for unity and to just bring to life John 6, when Jesus prays that they may be one as the Father and I are one. And so thank you for the dialogue.
Yeah. Awesome, Rick. Let's close it out. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Lord, we just thank you for the gift of Bob and his life, and how gracious, merciful, and abundant you are in all that you give us.
Yes, Lord.
We just ask that whoever this is supposed to minister to, whoever this is supposed to speak to, whatever his story is supposed to relate to in some way, to whoever it's supposed to reach out to, that your will be done in that. To what Bob said, just planting the seeds and trusting that we're following and doing the best that we can with what you've given us, and that you will take that and do amazing things with it. We just ask that you'd help us to be safe as we get home tonight. Continue to bless Bob, Karen, and the Raymon family. All of us here at this fire, bless our families and help us to just be reinvigorated, to be leaders, leaders in our homes, most especially, and to really focus on that. That's really where you call us to minister to, is that's where the real work is to change the hearts of our children, to show what it means to be forgiving and to ask for forgiveness in our homes, and to try and be the best possible reflection of you, Lord, as fathers, as mothers. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.